An emperor once entered the White Wasteland with an entire army. He returned alone, and according to him, the monsters weren't the most terrifying things living there. The barbarians were. Unfortunately for Ketal, that was exactly where he awakened after spending his entire life wishing that fantasy was real. Back on Earth, he searched everywhere for something impossible. Magic, monsters, anything that could prove the world was more interesting than it seemed. Then one day, his wish finally came true, and it immediately became a nightmare. Instead of awakening in some peaceful kingdom surrounded by knights and beautiful elves, Ketal opened his eyes inside a frozen hell filled with creatures powerful enough to wipe out armies. He had only one choice: survive. Years passed. The monsters stopped terrifying him, and eventually, the man who had entered this world searching for fantasy became something the fantasy world itself would fear. The funny part? Ketal still doesn't realize how terrifying he has become. All he wants is to escape the snow, see some real magic, meet an elf, and finally begin the adventure he always dreamed of. But before that adventure can begin, we have to visit the place that turned him into a monster. In the center of this world, in the White Wasteland, live monsters, maybe white serpents that devour glaciers, or gray bears that cause earthquakes with their step, perhaps vile rats that pollute the seas and have killed countless seamen. However, an emperor who'd returned alive from the White Wasteland once said that the most dangerous thing there is not the monsters. Inside of the White Wasteland, one of these barbarians is taking down a huge scorpion with a fluid kick. Another is not so lithe and uses his brutal strength to rip one of the scorpions in half. The third one simply steps towards them and cuts them up using his blades with expert precision. He looks at the brutish barbarian, noting that only one of them would proudly wear their ignorance like that. How much longer does he have to hang around with this ignoramus? The barbarian woman comes around wondering what ignorance is. Is it something that she can eat? The man says it's fine and she shouldn't worry about it. Naturally, they begin eating the scorpions, clearly annoying the smarter barbarian, as he told them specifically not to eat that because it would kill them. It's been less than a week, and they have already eaten one. The woman tries to sheepishly say something before she gives him an enthusiastic thumbs up, noting that it was the noblest challenge they have ever undertaken. Immediately, however, the brutish barbarian begins to choke as the poison overtakes him. The woman calls out to him, telling him to get a hold of himself. She continues slapping him again and again, which is probably worsening the situation, and the other barbarian simply steps away, noting that this is not what he wanted. In search of a world of fantasy, wonder, and magic, he quit his job and set off on his own journey. He climbed the tallest mountains on Earth. He reached the center of the planet. He even made it to the southernmost point on the globe. Of course, as always, nothing ever happened. Reality was the furthest thing from the fantasies he envisioned, so every night he prayed that when he woke up, he would find himself in the middle of a dream. One day, that prayer came true. A few days later, inside of the White Wasteland, a carriage is escorted by a bunch of hired mercenaries, with one of them noting that it's really freezing. The captain tells him to wrap himself tighter, unless he wants to freeze to death, but the mercenary tells him that he's already tight enough. He doesn't want to stop his own circulation. Another comes around and notes that, even if the rewards are pretty great, this plan is just foolish. Crossing the White Wasteland is an insane plan. The captain tells him to be quiet. They all agreed to this, did they not? The mercenary agrees, but they clearly didn't know it would be like this. Inside of the carriage they are escorting, a butler scoffs at their incessant talk and clears his throat before turning to the person in front of him with a worried expression and asking if she's all right. Milena from House Akasha says that she is, but she is interrupted by another mercenary screaming that he's gonna freeze out here. The butler can't believe how rude they are, but Milena tells him that he should not be so harsh on them. They are the only ones willing to escort them across the White Wasteland after all. Should they not bring the mercenaries inside? They look absolutely frozen, and it seems that their conditions are worsening by the minute. The butler sheepishly tells her no, as she knows full well what dwells inside the White Wasteland. Milena asks if he is talking about the monsters. A long, long time ago, an emperor who claimed that he wanted the entire world for himself set his sights on conquering the White Wasteland. He led countless warriors and soldiers on a march, and even led the way into the White Wasteland himself. By the time the emperor returned years later, the empire had collapsed and faded into memory. He had lost all of his men, returning alone and broken like a beggar. He looked decades older and spoke like someone who had lost his mind. He said there were monsters in the White Wasteland, but the most dangerous thing was not the monsters. It was the barbarians. That was where the barbarians lived. The butler thinks that's just some kind of legend told to scare off children, but Milena believes the emperor's words held weight. Many of the monsters he described were later confirmed to exist. However, the butler counters by saying there had never been a sighting of any barbarian. Milena agrees. Countless tales were told, yet none spoke of the barbarians. The captain of mercenaries tells everyone to stop, as something is in front of them. He cannot see it clearly, but he can make out its shape. The good news is that it's pretty small. The bad news is that it's approaching them. Everyone is shocked to hear this, and they immediately put their hands on their weapons, ready to fight. But they see that it's actually a human, a gigantic one in fact, who has an aura of pure dominance. They wonder if it's a barbarian, and he immediately locks eyes with them, noting that he came out for a stroll because he was sick of looking at other barbarians. Yet he finds outsiders in the snow. This is incredible luck. He did not expect to run into anyone here. This is the ashen barbarian Ketal, who does not seem that intimidating after all. He looks at their carriages and asks if they are merchants, which the captain confirms, and Ketal also guesses that they are hired guards. He suggests that they all turn back, though he doubts they will. The mercenary captain knows Ketal is not joking, and Ketal also notices the carriage and guesses that someone is inside of there, right? If they hired so many people, he would like to be hired as well. The captain asks what he is blabbering about, but Ketal believes he made himself pretty clear. He is offering to help them cross the White Wasteland. The captain can't believe it. A barbarian from legend is asking to join them. Is that really all that he wants? He asks if he really is not hostile, but Ketal just tells them how it is. If he were, they would all be dead already. They can't help but kind of agree with him. The captain goes to Milena's carriage, knocking on it and asking if she heard him, which she did. He did say he wanted to be hired as a mercenary, so what does she want to do? Milena sweats a bit before answering, asking what would happen if they fought him, and the captain says he personally does not recommend it. Milena knows what this means, and tells him to inform the barbarian that they will accept. The captain nods, and he returns to Ketal, noting that their employer has agreed. He smiles, which looks a little menacing on him, and notes that this is pretty great news. He really is just happy, but the captain and the other mercenaries see him as something else, a predator looking at his prey. Ketal passes them and tells them to relax. They are just hired help after all. He needs to speak with the one in charge face to face. The captain looks at him sternly, maintaining some of his composure, noting that if he tries anything, he will regret it. Ketal already knows that, and he simply walks away. One of the mercenaries wonders if it's really okay to let him meet her, but the captain says that the employer already gave her consent. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't stop something like that. The butler is shocked that Milena made this choice, but she simply tells him to stay calm. Suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, and Ketal asks if he can come in. The butler is about to have a heart attack, but Milena sheepishly agrees to let him in, which puts a smile on his face. Since Ketal is a little big, he squeezes past the butler with some difficulty, while telling him that he needs to calm down. Ketal tells the butler that he has no intention of harming him. The butler doesn't really believe that. Milena is simply impressed that there's a barbarian of legend right in front of her eyes, and notes that it's a pleasure to meet him. Ketal agrees that the pleasure is all his. He also feels that it's surprisingly warm inside here, even for an indoor space. It must be difficult to maintain this level of warmth inside the wasteland. Milena tells him that it's taken care of by magic, and Ketal is happily surprised that magic exists in this world. As Milena knows, this place is pretty dangerous. The chances of passing through here safely with those mercenaries are basically non-existent. That's why he will protect them. He will protect their lives. However, he has one condition. Milena asks what he desires, and Ketal's wish is simple: knowledge of the world outside of the snow. He desires the information she possesses. Milena is a little confused and shocked by his wish, but Ketal says it's not a bad deal for her, is it? Milena doesn't really believe she has a choice in the matter and agrees, leaving Ketal glad that she accepted. First, he asks her name, and she tells him that she is Milena of House Akasha. Ketal also introduces himself, noting that he looks forward to working with them. He, who had always yearned for a fantasy world, opened his eyes one day to find himself a barbarian in a field that was filled with only snow. There was no time to figure out why. All that existed here was bitter cold and powerful monsters. To survive, he lived among the tribe in the snowfield, hunting and desperately holding on for dear life. He does not know how much time has passed since then, but for what feels like countless years, he has relentlessly tried to escape this dreadful snowfield. However, when he got to the edge of it, the system informed him that his quest was incomplete, and he could only leave the snowfield upon quest completion. As he was about to give up on everything, people began to visit occasionally from the outside, although he had no idea why they would willingly come to such a hellish place. Then he realized that the world outside this dreadful place was the world of fantasy that he longed for, a real fantasy world. From that point onward, he began to move beyond survival and acted in earnest. He trampled monsters and completed the quests given to him one by one in order to leave the snowfield with the single-minded determination to escape one day. As long as he is stuck here, the information he can get from the outside is incredibly precious. But most of the humans he's met so far have either panicked and drawn their blades, or have just simply gone mad. This time, It seems they can have a proper conversation at least. He wonders how long it has been since he has had someone he could reason with. Having a civilized conversation makes his mind feel as if it is healing after being surrounded by nothing but ignorant barbarians. As he listens in, he notes that they must be transporting weapons, right? Milena is shocked that he knew, and Ketal explains that he can hear the sharp clang of steel from the wagons. Is there a war going on in the outside world, perhaps? Milena agrees. The Empire and the Kingdom are currently at war, and Ketal notes that the outside world is not exactly peaceful either. She confirms that the massive Empire is pushing forward with overwhelming numbers and supplies, but the Kingdom is not easily being pushed back either. That's because the Swordmaster and the hero are protecting the borders. Ketal is immediately interested in those two. What kind of powers do they wield? She wonders if he is unfamiliar with mysteries. Ketal tells her that he has never been outside of this place. Milena notes that she will explain to the best of her abilities. Since she does not know many details herself, there exists a power in the world known as mystery. Only a very small number of people can sense it, and an even smaller number can use it. They are classified into 5 ranks. Those of the 2nd rank and above can use the power of mystery for themselves. The highest is 1st rank. Individuals of this rank can manifest the power of mystery as mana or aura. They are typically knights and mages, perhaps even spirit summoners. Beyond that, the ranks become meaningless, as these individuals have surpassed human comprehension. Nevertheless, there are the Transcendents. They are beings who can dominate and freely wield mystery, capable of splintering the heavens and earth all at once. The Swordmaster belongs to this rank, and then there is the hero. Heroes have gone beyond the domination of mystery and influenced the world itself. A hero is, in and of itself, a legendary existence. In fact, the very act of having one's strength quantified and named is proof of strength, and even a 3rd rate is considered a powerful individual in a smaller domain. Ketal knows he wants to meet them. He cannot even remember how long he has been trapped in this place. He was just desperate to survive. All he knows is that he is trapped in a snowfield at the center of the fantasy world, and he wants to escape to the outside world. He doesn't just want to, he must, and he certainly will. As the carriage ride continues, Milena sheepishly asks if he's a barbarian, and Ketal says that would not be wrong. Judging by their reactions, they seem to be somewhat aware that barbarians exist. Milena agrees, noting that it's because of the legend, but Ketal wonders what legend she's talking about. Is it about him? Milena is surprised he does not know, and explains the legend to him. Ketal finds the story amusing. Was that bastard he met last time an emperor? He thought he was just some kind of madman that came here of his own volition. Well, their legends are probably correct. People like that have come here before. Changing the subject, Ketal notes that, judging by the number of wagons, it seems they are transporting a rather large quantity of blades. Is there any reason they must pass through this snowfield? Milena's expression falls after she hears this, and she notes that they need a lot of money. She explains that their family has been involved in commerce for generations, dating back to its founding. They have accumulated a great deal of wealth, but due to sabotage by those who grew jealous of that wealth, they are now in debt. This trading journey is meant to prevent the downfall of their family. Ketal understands that this is a journey to settle a debt. If that is the case, they must be planning to sell the weapons to the kingdom that is at war with the Empire. Milena is surprised he figured it out, but Ketal explains his reasoning. She just said that the Empire is pushing forward in overwhelming numbers. If that's the case, the Empire wouldn't have any problems with its weapon supply. If not the Empire, then the kingdom must be the one in need of blades. When supply is low in a place with high demand, the price naturally goes up. He does not know the prices in the outside world, but an amount like that must be worth quite a hefty sum, worth risking their lives to cross this snowfield for, right? Seeing as they are trying to cross this place, there must be no other way to get to the kingdom, right? Does their territory border happen to touch the Empire's? Milena is stunned and agrees. She had heard that the barbarians of legend were only ignorant savages, but is this guy truly a barbarian? Before she can wonder more, the carriage begins to shake, and a loud screech erupts outside, with the butler almost having a heart attack once again. Ketal remains calm, noting that it seems they have quite a few guests outside. A black slime has stopped their advance, and it's looking down at the mercenaries like they are bite-sized morsels. Milena is shocked that it's a black slime, and Ketal calmly wonders if that's what they call it. Milena is almost frozen in fear, and she shakily explains that it's a monster documented in the records. Many powerful warriors have attempted to conquer the White Wasteland. Few of them have returned. Those who returned wrote down what they saw in their books, and among the monsters, the black slime was the most frequently recorded. Does he also know about it? Ketal naturally does, but not in the sense that she had hoped for. They are chewy and surprisingly edible. They make decent snacks. Milena's expression falters, and she asks whether he really eats them, and he confirms that he does. He asks if she wants to try one and whether he should go catch one. The black slime screeches again, moving closer towards the mercenaries, and Milena screams at Ketal, demanding that he act, but he doesn't seem to want to at all. He explains that he made a contract with them. He said he would protect them with his life, and he will do so, but he has no intention of moving unless there is any sort of real danger. She may not think so, but they can handle that much themselves. More importantly, he needs to assess the outside world's current level as well. The black slime screeches again as it advances, and the mercenary captain calls for the shield, with the shield bearer rushing in to stop the slime's first attack, but immediately getting pushed back by a black tendril. Their axeman rushes in, taking this opportunity to strike, but the slime notices him and punches him away, sending him flying into a carriage. The beast screeches as it lunges at the captain, who tells everyone that black slimes only move in straight lines. They should scatter and coordinate among themselves. The other two mercenaries agree. One of the spearmen rushes in and slashes, drawing the black slime's full attention as it turns toward him. This allows the other spearman to throw his spear right through the slime, which is caught off guard by this double assault. The captain tells him to press the advantage and not stop attacking, unleashing one of his own strikes. He can see that simple attacks will not work. They should aim for the hidden core. After a few more slashes and attacks, the captain eventually finds the core and breaks it in two. The black slime falters, and the mercenaries immediately cheer for their victory, with Milena glad that it ended this way. They continue their journey, and eventually they encounter another monster, a white wolf. The mercenaries know to aim for the neck, so while the main forces pull its aggro, the spearmen rush in and finish it off. One of the mercenaries notes that the White Wasteland is not as dangerous as the rumors claimed. Perhaps the rumors were exaggerated. However, the captain tells them not to let their guard down. They are not even halfway through yet. One of the mercenaries is confused, though. Is that barbarian really that strong? Monster or not, it's all just legends from the Emperor, right? That guy was pretty much a madman. Perhaps he's the bottom of the food chain in the White Wasteland. Perhaps he's just leeching off of them. At the very least, should they not test his skills? Eventually, as they continue their journey, the carriage stops, leaving Milena confused, as one of the mercenaries notes that he has something to say to her. They want to give the barbarian a test. They are risking their lives to complete this mission. As mercenaries, they have a contract with her. That's only natural. Milena agrees, and she will always be grateful that they accepted the job. She notes that a request to cross the White Wasteland is a big ask. Everyone else ran off just hearing the details. If it were not for them, she would not even have been able to try in the first place. The mercenary, though, notes that this is something he cannot accept. That barbarian has not fought even once. He asks for permission to test whether that barbarian truly deserves such special treatment. Milena darts her eyes away, and she looks at the captain, who explains that he tried to stop them, but they would not listen. Ketal naturally heard this, and notes that he doesn't mind if they want to test his skills, but right now, it's not possible, as they have a guest ahead of them. Before the mercenaries can accuse him of deflecting, a voice speaks from behind them, declaring that frail mortals from outside have arrived in his domain. He will enjoy a rare delicacy today, it seems. The mercenaries turn around to be met by a white serpent who tells them to struggle all they want while they still can, because their struggle will become seasoning for the meal he will make of their flesh. The serpent unleashes a flurry of icy aura towards all of them, making everyone cower, except Ketal, who tells him that this is enough. These people are his guests, so he should go back while he still can. The serpent does not understand why Ketal is there. Has he forgotten the laws of the snowfields? If he strays from his tribe's territory, he cannot guarantee his safety. Ketal tells him that is none of his concern, but the serpent tells him not to be ridiculous, and unleashes more of his aura, noting that he is the white serpent. How dare he give orders to one who possesses immortality? He prepares to swallow Ketal whole, but Ketal simply charges up a punch, noting that he needs to be taught a lesson. He unleashes a devastating strike right in the white serpent's belly, completely eradicating the icy aura surrounding the serpent, and creating a gigantic wave of air that pushes everyone back. The serpent is stunned by the blow, but Ketal notes he is the type who only listens after a beating. Milena calls out Ketal's name in disbelief, and he says that he will just finish cleaning up here, and it will not take long. Using just 3 long strides, he reaches the snake again, and unleashes another earth-shattering punch, and the white serpent's howls echo throughout the snowfield as it cries out in pain. After Ketal finishes, and they return to the carriage, the mercenary who tried to test Ketal immediately apologizes, begging for his life to be spared, but Ketal really isn't that interested. Ketal says the mercenary's suspicion was only natural. Not trusting a stranger was actually smart. They continue their journey, but Ketal chooses to stay inside the carriage this time, as there is something he is curious about. Judging by her attire and her speech, She doesn't seem to be a mere agent for her family. Why would she personally embark on such a life-threatening journey? She explains that she is the first daughter of Lady Beliaka, the concubine of Lord Kasak. Ketal asks whether concubine means a second wife, and she confirms as such. Her mother entered the family through a political marriage, only to be used, and then abandoned. Her mother was a pitiful woman, unable to secure any real power. Both she and her mother are family in name only. In reality, they are nothing. They were treated like servants. Milena didn't really mean to reveal so much. At this point, she can't really let it go unexplained. She volunteered for this trade mission, even though it's a life-threatening journey, because someone has to set an example. Ketal understands, noting that she is quite intelligent. She has great ambition, and she is quite greedy. Before Milena can answer, the hired guards outside cheer because they have reached the end of the snowy fields. Ketal disembarks, and Milena thanks him. He asks if they can manage the return trip, but she notes that they can simply pass through the Empire. Ketal understands that by then, they will have sold the weapons and will return empty-handed. Crossing the border should not be difficult. Before they depart, though, Milena wants to say one last thing. She asks what he meant when he called her intelligent and ambitious. Ketal meant exactly what he said. She's intelligent and at the same time, quite ambitious. Her family was once highly renowned, but it's now teetering on the brink due to the lack of funds. Even though she is just a daughter of a concubine, if she personally makes a move to carve out a path for survival, while the rest of the family does nothing as it faces ruin, who does she think her subjects will choose to trust and follow? Her goal is to seize control of the family, right? She can't disagree, and Ketal thinks it's a pretty common story. The child of a concubine taking on a dangerous task to inherit the family name. Milena is shocked by how smart this barbarian is. She thinks he is not like the fools who believe they are clever, both in the Empire and the kingdom. The power he used to defeat the White Serpent without taking a single scratch. If that power became hers, she would be unstoppable. She asks whether he has ever considered leaving the White Wasteland, and whether he would like to join her. Ketal declines, as he still has some things to take care of here. Milena expects this answer, so in that case, would he accept this? If by some chance he does come to the outside world and look for House Akasha, he should show them this piece. Ketal understands that it is a gift and gladly accepts it. Even the butler thanks him for his hard work and hopes that someday they will meet again. With that, the carriages leave, and Ketal is left all alone inside of the White Wasteland. 5 years later, at the same border where he last watched the carriage and its passengers leave, the conditions have been met. The 784th quest is complete. With the conditions met, he may now leave the White Wasteland. Finally, he is able to take his first step in the fantasy world that he longed to enter all this time. Ketal takes slow steps at first, feeling everything around him. The fragrant smell of grass, the scent of the beasts nearby, and even the sound of the river flowing calmly. Since the snowy plains offered none of these sensations, they are wonderful, truly wonderful. He turns around, looking at the snowy plains, and shouts that they should never meet again. This is the fantasy world he dreamed of even in his sleep. It's a world of illusion and the unknown that he thought he could never reach. It is a world of wonder and mystery. Though the starting point went horribly wrong, he did survive, so now he will enjoy this world filled with magic and blades, dragons, and elves. Without his desire for fantasy, he would have died quite a long time ago. As the snowy fields were a hell he could not survive through the will to live alone. He sees a few lights in front of him, a place where miracles gather. Surely that must be a village, finally a civilized village in this world. He tried to talk to those ignorant barbarians who sleep in the snow about the need for shelter, but they just blinked at him, not understanding a thing. He deeply misses having a roof over his head, but he wonders what his first words should be. Should he just say hello, or should he just traditionally ask what kind of world this is? Whatever the case, he will be a gentleman. Somewhere else, in a field covered by some sort of mana, a village elder tells the villagers that from this moment forth, this will be their home, so they should unpack their things and take root in this land. Eventually, a young elf comes to the elder and wonders if this place truly is safe. The village elder confirms as such. This is an extremely remote area. Humans cannot come through here. The young elf knows that, but the snowy plains are nearby. The elder understands the young elf's fear. The young elf is worried about the monsters that come from the plains, but that's not an issue. For thousands of years, nothing has ever come out of there. Besides, they've even placed a barrier just in case. It is a barrier that wraps around the place, concealing their presence and making this place seem like an ordinary forest. They barely managed to implement it after months of designing it using elven magic. As long as this barrier exists, the outsiders cannot approach them. And even if the monsters of the snowy plains do come, it will not matter because they have the protection of Her Majesty, their queen. No matter what kind of monsters appear, they will never be able to overcome their queen. Naturally, Ketal passes through their barrier like it is nothing and does not even notice. It only seems as though the atmosphere changed. Anyway, he wonders how much farther he has to go. Suddenly, he senses an elven girl nearby. He is surprised, as this is one of the most iconic races in any fantasy world. He did not expect to meet one so soon. This is an extreme stroke of luck. The small girl is scared. She got lost, and she doesn't really know where she is. She must have wandered way too far. Then she sees Ketal's shadow looming over her. In her eyes, he seems like some kind of demon king. She immediately freezes and falls unconscious, with Ketal catching her in confusion. He has not even had a proper conversation with her, and she has already fainted. Since it has come to this, should he take her to her village? Depending on the mythology, elves are generally a gentler race aligned with order and goodness. If he returns a lost child, perhaps he will be welcomed as a kind person. What would it be like to be welcomed by elves? Well, he is quite looking forward to it, so he begins to walk. Eventually, he finds them, but he is rather confused by their reactions, as they immediately pull out their weapons, with one of them asking how the hell he even broke through the barrier. The elder immediately arrives at the commotion, completely shocked that a human is here. This is a remote land clearly untouched by humans. So how can this be? There should have been a barrier. One of the elves tells him that there's a crack in the barrier, and the elder immediately asks where Her Majesty is, but another tells him that she's currently away on a brief patrol. Ketal tries to tell them that he is not an enemy, but they immediately tell him that if he does not return the child, they will pursue him even after death and into the afterlife. The elder can't believe it. Their location has been exposed. The barrier was made with ancient elven magic. No mere trick could let someone breach it. The fact that it's broken must mean that the humans came fully prepared. How long have they been tracking them? Ketal only now realizes that he looks like a kidnapper, and guesses that he must clear this misunderstanding before anything else. He looks at a small girl who is shaking and crying in his arms. He simply puts her back on the ground and pats her on the head, telling her to go back to her people. She becomes less afraid and looks up at him, only to see another visage of a demon king. She immediately becomes frightened again and runs back to her mother, while Ketal wonders if he really is that ugly. He thought he was decent enough back in the snowy plains, so he is a bit shocked. He raises a hand and says that, as they can see, he is not their enemy. However, once the hostage is released, they immediately attack him with special magic arrows, leaving Ketal to wonder whether he is speaking a different language. He is surprised by how much more savage these elves are than the ones he imagined. The elves of legends are supposed to be gentle people who love nature and peace, but these elves are violent and savage. Then again, they are a race that lives in the wild, and nature is a world where only the strong survive. That's far from peaceful. It's only natural that they would be ferocious. Ketal is a bit annoyed by their constant strikes though, so he slams his palms together, unleashing a devastating strike through the entire area, sending some of the elves flying and completely shattering the sound barrier. The elder is shocked by the destruction Ketal caused, while Ketal tells them once again that he is not their enemy. He says he did not mean to cause so much damage, having failed to control his strength. He tries to tell them once again that he is not a bad person, but suddenly a phoenix arrow rushes in and completely engulfs him in flame as it explodes. It seems the queen has arrived, the hero of the Ipai and queen of the Leaf clan, Marsalia Hassan Carusia. She asks what is going on here, and the elder tells her that a human has attacked them. She surveys the scene with a determined but gloomy expression on her face. She realizes that this place is not safe either. Naturally, Ketal is not harmed by the attack and tells them to wait, as he would appreciate it if they would listen to what he has to say. The elder is completely shocked. How can he be unharmed after taking a direct hit from the queen? Marsalia is surprised that even a powerhouse like him is targeting them. Humans really are disgusting. She is the queen of the Leaf clan. Now she will make him pay for his greed. Ketal wonders whether she can understand him, since they are obviously communicating in the same language, and he can understand her. Is he just being ignored? Or perhaps the relationship between humans and elves is just that poor. Since there is nothing he can do about it, he follows the lesson he learned in the snowfields. People listen after being hit. Marsalia draws an arrow and unleashes a much more devastating strike towards him, one that seems like a thunder dragon. But Ketal simply draws back his fist and drives a punch into the attack, completely reversing its power and sending it back toward the queen. Ketal clearly does not intend to do that, and the strike completely overwhelms Marsalia, knocking her to the ground without killing her. Ketal wonders if he should have held back his punch a bit more, but Marsalia is shocked. She understands from that simple strike that this man is powerful, at least at the level of a transcendent. Why would someone that strong be here? She tells everyone to get away from here immediately, and they try to tell her otherwise, but she screams at them to flee while they still can. They immediately begin doing so, and she acknowledges Ketal's strength and declares that he will never accomplish his goal here. Ketal tries to tell her that he was just trying to talk, but she refuses to listen to him once again. She summons a powerful being that embodies primal purity and sets evil ablaze. It is Piego, who seems to be some kind of bovine spirit. Ketal is really giddy about seeing a summoned spirit. The creatures in the tundra were quite ugly and bizarre. There were a few that looked like something out of fantasy, but most were just hideous creatures. This one before him is a bull with horns of blazing fire. Now that's a spirit. This is real fantasy, just as he imagined. Marcelia tells Piego that he should annihilate the enemy before him. Piego scoffs, noting that, as he thought, contracts are not worth the trouble, but Marcelia tells him to be silent. Piego is a being that embodies the purest flame. The stronger a spirit, the more ancient it is, and thus the greater its pride. With her own power, she can barely summon him, and she only managed to secure a contract with the help of another tribe. She never thought she would summon him under these circumstances, however. Marcelia tells him to fulfill the contract, and he agrees. Once Piego sees that the thing he is supposed to kill looks like some kind of demented beast, he wonders whether Ketal is even human. Ketal's amazed expression immediately falters, as he hears Marcelia explain to Piego that this is a human who intruded on their lands. Piego realizes that a pathetic human has dared to threaten the race of nature. He decides to return Ketal to ash and leave nothing behind. Ketal's expression completely falters, as he wonders what the hell he even did wrong. With that, Piego surges with pure flame and rushes at Ketal, unleashing a devastating world-splitting strike at him. This even pushes Marcelia back, but she is shocked by what she sees when the dust clears. Ketal has stopped Piego by grabbing one of his horns. He smiles slightly, as it's a beastly form that really puts him at ease. It makes it easier to beat him to death. With that, he unleashes a stronger punch, one that acts like a supernova against Piego's pure flame. The force of the strike extends far beyond the point of impact, almost unleashing the full brunt of an actual nuke, lighting up the entire forest and its surrounding area. Marcelia can only scream, but Ketal just keeps pushing until Piego is finished. Marcelia cannot believe that the barren wasteland before her is real. She looks at the man before her and bows her head, begging him to spare her kin. Ketal just approaches her and tells her that he is not her enemy. Marcelia finally listens to him and looks back at him. After a pretty lengthy conversation, she finally comes to accept that Ketal really isn't an enemy. She apologizes deeply, saying they judged him too hastily and mistook the one who brought back their child for an enemy. She calls it a grave insult that they have committed. It seems that her conscience has finally awakened. Ketal sighs, saying that it's fine. She did say she was driven here by humans, so he does understand. Still, it was pretty sad that they never gave him a chance to explain. She asks if he really is not one of the humans chasing them, and Ketal tells her this is the first time he has seen an elf. There aren't any in the snowfields to begin with. Marcelia wonders what he is talking about, but Ketal tells her that he is the ashen barbarian of the White Wasteland. That's what the outsiders called him anyway. She thinks that's impossible. She didn't think humans could even survive there. But if he truly came from the White Wasteland, does that mean others could come out of it too? Ketal can't really answer that because he doesn't know, but he doubts anyone else would. He thinks that there are strict rules in the White Wasteland. Even powerful beings like the White Serpent cannot defy them, but for some reason he was able to bypass them by completing quests. That's probably a very rare exception. Marcelia thinks that's a relief, and Ketal wonders if her summoned spirit is okay, as he did kind of split him into atoms. Marcelia pushes herself up and tells him not to worry. Spirits are beings of nature after all. When forcibly unsummoned, they simply return to the spirit realm. She admits that she has been rude. She asks whether there is anything he wants. She will do whatever she can. Ketal, however, is stuck on the spirit thing and asks, can beings other than elves make contracts with spirits? Marcelia averts her gaze and thinks that might not be possible for him, but explains that among humans, those with deep affinity to nature can sometimes form contracts. Ketal guesses that this means it is impossible for someone like him. After a bit of consideration, Marcelia tells him that if he truly wishes to contract a spirit, he should go to Elfo Sagrado. It's where the god of the elves resides, the holy land of all elves. There, it certainly might be possible. Ketal is immediately pleased by this idea, but wonders, would a human like me be allowed in? Marcelia explains that a human normally would not be allowed in, but her introduction should grant him entry. She will share where it is, but he must keep this information to himself. The holy land of elves, the Elfo Sagrado, is the dream destination of every elf researcher. But for the elves, letting a human near it is incredibly dangerous. To protect a place more precious than life itself, no elf would ever reveal its location. However, she does have an immense debt to him, and she wants to believe in him. She tells him to take the item with him. Ketal says he will accept it as thanks. Marcelia also warns that even if he gets close, their god may still test him despite her blessing, but she doubts he will fail. She also introduces herself as Marcelia Hassain Carusia, queen of the Leaf clan that turns brown in autumn. Ketal also introduces himself as Ketal the Barbarian. After that meeting, he continues making his way through the forest, but his strides devour the ground before him. They shake the very earth as he continues jumping from spot to spot at the border of the Barkan domain in the Gehent kingdom. The guards naturally hear this but immediately become frightened by something approaching. The head guard tells everyone to sound the bell and call the guards to arms, as the approaching figure eventually lands right in front of them. They are shocked to see that it resembles a human. Ketal looks at them, realizing that they must be guards, and says that it is nice to meet them. The head guard realizes that the noise they heard came from this man, and recognizes him from legend by his ash-gray hair and the massive scar on his chest. Is this the Ashen Barbarian he's heard from legend? He takes a step forward, and the head guard screams at him to stop, readying his weapon, noting that if he comes closer they will attack. Ketal notes that he would prefer them to calm down, as he is not their enemy. The head guard wonders what it is he seeks from them, and Ketal points beyond the wall, and innocently notes that he would just like to visit their territory, confusing them. The head guard takes Ketal to the interrogation room, and asks whether his goal is simply to pass through the territory. Ketal agrees, and if possible, he would like to stay a while. He is not sure how long though. The guard asks his name and whether he has anyone who can verify his identity, or any form of ID. Ketal says he has no such thing, but he remembers the object he received from Milena, and still carries in his pocket. He asks whether this is enough. The head guard wonders what it is. Ketal explains that it is the crest of House Akasha. He received it from someone of that bloodline. The head guard notes that if it is from House Akasha, then it must be the crest of that merchant family from the Denian kingdom, whose members came through the White Wasteland a few years ago. It's a house that's been gaining quite a lot of prominence lately. Its power has grown rapidly since a new head took over a few years ago. Ketal asks if this is enough to verify his identity, but unfortunately, the head guard tells him that it's pretty hard to confirm. Since they are in the Gehent kingdom, the head guard cannot confirm it, but it still helps Ketal's case. He may enter, but there is one condition he must meet. They need confirmation that he is not a threat. He explains that there are 3 others trying to enter the territory right now. The condition is to clear a dungeon near the domain with those whose identities are unclear. Ketal thinks that's easier than he expected, and he accepts, but the head guard puts one more condition. After clearing the dungeon, he must report everything that happened inside. Ketal understands that those with unclear status are made to observe one another so the guards can identify any suspicious individuals in the process. That's really not bad. That's pretty clever. The head guard says it is not exactly like that, then wonders whether Ketal is really a barbarian. He thought they were just some kind of brute race. He is the first barbarian of this kind the head guard has ever met. With that, the head guard ends the conversation and leads him to the others. They make their way to where the party is waiting, with one of them noting that having to enter a dungeon with a rat is rather tragic. This is the self-proclaimed paladin Alessandro Tyrannus. The man next to him asks whether Alessandro is picking a fight again, and whether he is angry because a thief scammed him and stole his fortune. This is the thief, Kasan Hark. Alessandro calls him a bastard. Alessandro asks how a mere thief dares insult a paladin, but Kasan tells him he is no damn paladin. Is that how a paladin dresses nowadays? A real paladin wouldn't have even been here in the first place. He is just a wandering warrior who dares to call himself one. Alessandro is a bottom feeder, just like Kasan is, and Tyrannus is a pretty dumbass surname, isn't it? Alessandro immediately draws his blade at this insult and points it at Kasan, while Kasan draws his own, asking if he wants to go. Does he think that ragged armor of his will protect him from the poison on his blades? Just as they are about to clash blades, the third party member sighs and asks if they could just please stop. To think that she would have to raid a dungeon with them. She hopes it will be alright. This is Hayes, a cleric of Colossia. The minimum number for a dungeon is 4 members, so one more should be coming soon. She hopes it's someone who isn't as crazy as these two. Just as she thinks that though, the door opens, and the head guard notes that the last person has arrived. Kasan says he hopes it is not another self-proclaimed fool, but the head guard tells them to see for themselves. Ketal makes his way through the door, having to duck his head to avoid hitting the doorframe, and the atmosphere inside the room immediately changes. Ketal simply smiles and asks if they are his party members. Alessandro is surprised by how huge Ketal is, and hopes that he is human, while Kasan cannot believe the pressure. Ketal just waves at them, saying that it is nice to meet them, and the head guard says that they should talk among themselves and introduce themselves. He will return shortly. With that, the head guard leaves, and Ketal introduces himself and looks at Kasan, who immediately introduces himself like he's a soldier. Alessandro also introduces himself as a paladin, with Ketal wondering if he uses holy power as a paladin. Alessandro confirms that he is a paladin but admits that he cannot use holy power because he is an unusual case. The last one to introduce herself is Hayes, a cleric of Colossia, who serves the god of lies and deceit. Ketal is surprised that her identity remains unclear even as a cleric, but she explains that the deity she serves is the god of lies and deceit. Because the deity is not well regarded, she is forced to do something like this. Eventually, the head guard comes back and notes that if everyone is ready, they should head out. With that, the ragtag group of adventurers makes its way with the head guard towards the dungeon entrance, which looks like an ordinary cave. He explains that it's a third-floor dungeon. The monsters are all undead, or they should be. They need to clear the dungeon and return with proof that they completed it. With the head guard leaving, Ketal asks whether anyone has a plan. Kasan sheepishly approaches, calling him sir, but Ketal tells him to drop the honorific and notes that they're a team, after all, right? Kasan laughs pretty awkwardly and clears his throat, noting that Ketal and Alessandro will take the front lines, while he checks for traps, and the priest will support the fight from the rear with her various abilities. Ketal immediately agrees, not seeing anything wrong with the plan, and so they make their way into the dungeon. Once they are a few steps inside, they can see that it's pretty dark, to the point where they can barely see anything. Kasan can't see the usual traps or tricks. This looks suspiciously normal. It's as if it's been visited in the past. Suddenly, Kasan sees something that makes his eyes widen, and he taps Ketal on the shoulder, noting that there are monsters about. Ketal does not see any, but Kasan points out that the bones scattered on the floor right in front of him are skeletons. If they get any closer, they will rise and attack. This confirms Kasan's suspicions that the dungeon is not just for verifying identities. It was just a tool to get rid of troublesome outsiders like them. Ketal is interested in skeletons, and Kasan explains that they are strong monsters and can keep moving even if they are wounded or their limbs are cut off. Since they are made of bone, their durability is considerable. This dungeon's difficulty is a lot higher than they anticipated. Kasan tells the priest to get her powers ready and tells Alessandro to shield up, while Kasan looks for an opening during the fight. A skeleton's body moves even when damaged, so one has to aim for the neck. That's the sweet spot. Plus, they are pretty tough to damage in the first place, so they will have to be hit multiple times. Ketal understands, and immediately steps forward as a skeleton rises from the pile of bones into a standing form. Its gleaming eyes promise nothing but doom. Everyone gets ready to strike with their usual abilities, but naturally, Ketal just raises a hand. Just as the skeleton strikes, he smacks it across the head extremely hard, pulverizing its skull from the impact and leaving behind glistening dust particles. Everyone is completely and utterly shocked, but Ketal is just happy that it's just like Kasan said. It really stops moving once its head is removed, huh? Kasan can only laugh awkwardly and fearfully, as that is not what he meant in the slightest. A skeleton's bones are exceptionally hard, even for a skilled swordsman. Cutting through them in a single strike is impossible without aura. Furthermore, the skeleton was strengthened by the dungeon's mana. The usual way to defeat a skeleton is like cutting down a tree. Repeatedly attack its neck until the vertebrae are severed. Pulverizing the skull in a single blow is, by all accounts, impossible. Kasan knew this barbarian was strong from the moment they saw him, but he never imagined Ketal was this strong. Is this guy really even human? Ketal looks with interest at the pile of dust below him, and then steps forward, noting that they should keep going. They all immediately follow, rushing after him, but he says, there's no need to rush. However, everyone simply does not want to die. Eventually, they reach another area containing skeletons. One even has a tattered linen shirt on it. They all immediately prepare for battle, but Ketal wants to ask a favor of them. He will handle these skeletons by himself. There's something he wishes to test out. Everyone immediately agrees, and Ketal thanks them, allowing the clothed skeleton to slowly rise. His party wonders what he is trying to do, but Ketal is just interested in how this thing is put together. The skeleton charges in with a heavy blade, but Ketal just grips it with 2 fingers and snaps the blade in 2. The skeleton draws back the remaining half of the blade and pushes off a nearby stone to lunge at Ketal once again. But he just dodges the blade pretty easily and grabs the skeleton's hand. Impressed by the texture, Ketal wonders what the skeleton will do if he shatters its forearm. He does so, turning the bone to dust and leaving it nearly armless. The skeleton pauses as if confused for a moment before its posture stiffens and it jumps in once again, kicking the blade up and grabbing it with the other hand. Ketal is very happy that it can switch to the other hand, and the skeleton charges in again, but Ketal does the exact same thing, pulling off its other arm as well with ease. The skeleton, however, does not give up, and rushes in again, using its broken appendage as a weapon. Ketal naturally breaks the makeshift weapon too, pleased that it can adapt to missing parts. It seems that its intelligence is quite high. This continues for a pretty long while. Hayes is starting to get sick, and so are the others, as this is what a true barbarian looks like. Eventually, after Ketal finishes his gruesome tests, he pulls off the skeleton's head and observes that it stops moving once its head is removed, which is pretty interesting. He confirms his deduction as he crushes the skull with his foot. He apologizes for the delay, hoping that they have not waited long, but Kasan tells him that it wasn't a bother at all. Kasan says Ketal should take all the time he needs. With that, Ketal notes that they should continue onward, and they all agree immediately. They proceed beyond the first room and reach the stairs leading to the second floor. As they descend, Kasan suggests taking a brief rest. When Ketal agrees, Kasan immediately bows in thanks. They all sit down at the end of the stairs, not really saying much of anything because they don't want to be a bother to Ketal. But Ketal has something to ask about the dungeon. Ketal admits that it is embarrassing, but his knowledge of this matter is insufficient. Hayes tells him that the desire to learn is one of the great virtues. She's not terribly knowledgeable, but what is he curious about? Ketal has noticed that this dungeon is located pretty close to the territory. Are there no issues with dungeons and the monsters within? Hayes explains that generally monsters from a dungeon do not just venture outside, although there are exceptions. Cases like that are identified and dealt with beforehand. Kasan clears his throat to add to this. Dungeons are a natural phenomenon, just like anything else. Sometimes they appear as caves, other times as towers. The majority of dungeons manifest near populated areas. Ketal understands that this is why the dungeon appeared here. Hayes continues, noting that when a dungeon manifests, the local lord assesses the danger, and then adventurers, mercenaries, or even guards are dispatched to clear it. Ketal is intrigued by this. They do not manifest inside of the territory, only outside. Hayes confirms as such, and Ketal wonders, is there some kind of a reward for a successful conquest of a dungeon? Hayes guesses that's not entirely incorrect. There is usually a boss on the final floor, and one receives rewards for defeating it. For a dungeon this size, the reward may be quite substantial. Ketal cannot believe it, as it's just like a game, but there is also something he is curious about. Who makes these dungeons? Hayes is a little confused by the question, as dungeons occur naturally. They're a natural phenomenon, like Kasan explained. Nobody creates them, but Ketal believes that there are too many oddities for that to be the case. First, they manifest near populated areas, and if demand is high, they appear near settlements and tempt people with treasure, just like a snake would tempt someone with an apple. For a natural phenomenon, it's pretty deliberate. Hayes is in agreement and thinks it was so widely accepted that she never thought to question it. Kasan hasn't either. He never even doubted it. It was simply the natural order of things, a truth of the world. Is this barbarian questioning the truth like that? Perhaps Kasan should start thinking for himself. Barbarians are, by all accounts, an ignorant and savage people. They are cruel and devoid of any kind of emotion. That much is true, but if everything he knows is correct, is this man truly a barbarian? Ketal interrupts his thoughts by noting that this is rather interesting and asks if everyone has rested enough. They immediately agree, so Ketal notes that they should depart. They continue walking through the second floor, where they find not a monster, but a treasure chest. Ketal asks what that is, and Kasan explains that it is exactly what it looks like, a treasure chest, one of the rewards provided by the dungeon. Ketal asks Kasan to unlock it. That is easy for Ketal to say, but opening a chest of this quality would require a master rogue with proven lockpicking skills. A rogue of that caliber would have no business being in a dungeon like this. Kasan stares at him in confusion. Ketal points out that it is a treasure chest, and Kasan is a rogue, right? Kasan cannot really deny that, but before he can finish explaining, Ketal cuts him off. Is it not the role of the rogue to handle treasure chests? That is why he is asking. Kasan admits internally that Ketal is not wrong, but there is just one lingering issue. If he could do something like that, he would not even be in this situation in the first place. He's a bottom feeder who isn't even acknowledged by the Thieves Guild. He doesn't know how to pick any locks, but he can't just tell him the truth. Ketal's expectant expression makes it clear that he expects success, and it will instantly turn into disappointment, maybe even rage. Maybe he will actually turn him into skeleton dust as well. Kasan cries internally at the thought. Kasan says that he will give it a shot though. Ketal doesn't really give him space, peering over his shoulder and asking if that's the equipment used for lockpicking. That's pretty curious. This puts even more pressure on Kasan, who thinks that he might not even be getting out of this alive, but he should remember the skills he saw while working as that bastard's porter. He should remember, because right now he can feel that his life is on the line, and that's the greatest motivator of all. Eventually, by some stroke of divine luck, Kasan actually manages to open the treasure chest. Hayes is actually amazed. She has heard that only skilled thieves can unlock treasure chests, and seeing it firsthand is amazing. Ketal agrees. It seems that Kasan really is impressive. This seemed impossible at first glance. So how did he do it? He succeeded through mere imitation. Could that really be possible? Kasan has always prided himself on doing his best to survive, but he never truly did. Now, for the first time in his life, he is actually doing his best. Ketal wonders how much the treasure is worth, and Hayes notes that with this much, a regular family could live comfortably for about a month, and quite luxuriously at that. Ketal is glad, and tells Kasan to please take care of the rewards. He immediately begins doing so, picking up a goblet from the chest, and putting it in the treasure bag. But Ketal calls out his name, and he immediately screams like a little girl. Ketal wonders whether Kasan needs help, or is hurt because he screamed, but Kasan says he needs nothing, and did nothing, confusing everyone. They continue onward and come across another group of skeletons, 4 in total. Ketal tells them that this time he will handle the 3 of them. They will handle the last one. They all agree, knowing that this is their first battle, and the skeletons immediately get up. The sight of bones assembling gives Kasan chills because it feels unnatural. The skeletons rise, radiating malevolence, and the party readies itself. Hayes uses her spells to strengthen the other 2. Kasan immediately charges in after that, unleashing a strike on one of the skeletons and pushing it back. The other skeletons try to intervene, but Ketal simply holds them back as if they were puppies, noting that this is a rare spectacle, so they should not interrupt. He will handle them all later. The battle continues. Alessandro defends against one of the skeleton's strikes with his sturdy shield, while Kasan slips behind the skeleton and delivers a deadly blow to the skeleton's head. Hayes casts the Shadow of Confusion on Alessandro, giving him an afterimage and allowing him to move much faster. His rapid strikes force the skeleton to its knees. However, it's not defeated just yet. Seeing this, Ketal laughs after taking care of the last skeleton assigned to him, and notes that it's really impressive to see a party's core skills in action firsthand. That's quite rare. Well, with the obstacles cleared now, he gets to enjoy the show, right? Kasan charges in and unleashes another attack on the skeleton's vertebrae. They all believe the barbarian is testing them, so losing is not an option. After a bunch more strikes, they deal with it, and they are all completely worn out. To put it lightly, Ketal now believes that there's no doubt the adventurers who entered the White Wasteland must have been strong. After all, they go to the 3rd floor, where the number of skeletons has increased, but with Ketal leading the front, they are able to proceed without much difficulty. Finally, they arrive at the deepest part of the dungeon, the boss room, where a skeleton in armor sits, waiting. Hayes recognizes it as a skeleton knight, and her face immediately drops. Why is something like this here in the first place? Ketal asks if this is different from other skeletons, and Hayes agrees. It's strong, extremely strong. A skeleton knight is a skeleton wielding a blade and shield. Unless it's a knight-level fighter, they have no real chance of winning. This is a monster they simply cannot face. Ketal wonders what happens if they cannot clear it and decide to retreat. Hayes tells him that in that case, they will request confirmation from the territory, and if it's confirmed that it was a reasonable decision, their entry application will proceed without issue. Ketal acknowledges that retreat would be reasonable, but he smiles and walks forward because he really wants to test this guy out too. The skeleton knight gets up, and Ketal is quite interested in a skeleton that maintains its own form. That is a rather interesting thing. At that moment, the skeleton knight prepares to strike, and Hayes immediately responds by pushing back with as much holy power as she can. However, the strike is incredible, and she can barely hold on for half a second before the shield breaks. Alessandro steps up, using his shield to block it and defend the others, and he succeeds, but the impact knocks him on his ass, and he's completely out of breath. Ketal is impressed. A single blow has this much power. This one is quite strong too, right? The skeleton knight, seeing this, charges in, pressing the advantage, but Ketal doesn't even move and gives the skeleton a curious stare before he immediately defeats it in one punch, making it disappear slowly. They're all naturally completely stunned once again, and Ketal dusts his hands, wondering if this is all. As they explore the remaining area, Ketal finds another chest and asks Kasan if he can unlock it. Kasan immediately tells him that opening it is impossible. It has a high-level lock on it. He doesn't have that much skill. Ketal agrees that it is a shame, but instead of leaving it, he just punches the chest open, leaving everyone stunned once again. Ketal believes that the rewards are certainly better this way, and tells Kasan to take care of the rest. As Kasan moves to do so, he cannot believe Ketal just smashed the treasure chest open. Something like this is unheard of, but if he could just break it, why did they ask him to unlock it in the first place? With that done, they leave the dungeon, and Ketal can see that it closes behind them, sealing itself completely. Kasan explains that once a dungeon is fully cleared, the dungeon disappears. There was no secret room this time, so the dungeon disappeared immediately after being cleared. Ketal wonders, do secret rooms really exist? And Kasan agrees, though there are not many. They return to the head guard, who is surprised that they did it so fast. He gathers them in the room where they first met, and asks how the dungeon was. Ketal gives him a thumbs up, noting that it was a pretty satisfying adventure. The head guard nods awkwardly, and notes that they will now proceed with the entry procedure, so they should follow him one by one. Hayes goes first, and tells him that there didn't seem to be any major issues inside of the dungeon. The head guard asks if she thinks it's acceptable for the barbarian to stay in the domain, and she says it should be fine, trailing off vaguely once the subject comes up. The head guard closes his eyes, thinking that the entry procedure is not just about clearing the dungeon. The true procedure is to use the process to weed out any dangerous elements. Kasan tells him that the barbarian didn't seem to be the type to cause trouble, and Alessandro says something similar. The head guard recognizes that even if he possesses incredible strength, the barbarian did not harm his party, so he's very different from a typical barbarian. When it's Ketal's turn to speak, he immediately praises everyone, commending Kasan's excellent trap disarmament and treasure chest opening, Alessandro's reliable shield, and Hayes' many prayers that were a great aid in battle. The head guard believes that's pretty unusual. Usually when they force strangers into a party to clear a dungeon, there is no way they'd have good things to say about one another, but he decides to grant them all entry. He leads them to the front gates, noting that permission is granted, but if they cause trouble, they will be exiled, so they should be careful. He also hands them a bag of the rewards for the dungeon they cleared. They should divide it among themselves. Often the guards confiscate the dungeon clearing rewards, but this time the head guard did not really want to push his luck. Kasan thanks him and turns to the others, noting that they should divide it fairly. They all immediately decline, saying that it is all right, but Kasan notes that they are a party that worked together to clear the dungeon. The rewards must be shared fairly. He will not accept their refusal. Well, now that this is over, they should go for a drink to celebrate. Shall they find a pub around here? They all sheepishly agree, but internally cry, because they just want to be let go. With that, Ketal begins giddily guiding them towards what seems like their doom, judging by their expressions. The head guard watches him leave, remembering that he felled a skeleton knight with a single blow. He is monstrously strong. He is at least knight level, perhaps higher, but clearly he is not a typical barbarian. He is a barbarian of legend, an alien existence. The head guard turns on his heel, noting that he's going to see the Lord, and tells the other guards to keep watch. He gets to the keep just as the moon rises, and Luke tells him to enter after hearing his knock. This is Luke Barkan, the lord of the Barkan domain in the Gehent kingdom. He asks what it is, and the head guard tells him that he wishes to report that a barbarian has appeared in the domain. Luke asks whether the head guard granted Ketal permission, and the head guard confirms as such. The head guard says he judged that it would not be an issue. Luke asks what the problem is then, so the head guard tells him that Ketal is strong enough to be an issue. Luke asks just how strong Ketal is, and the head guard notes he has confirmed reports that Ketal took down a skeleton knight in a single blow. Luke is naturally amazed. That's a monster that no one below the level of a knight should face, and Ketal defeated it in a single blow. Barbarians are simple, ignorant beings. They solve everything through fists, rather than logic. Luke asks whether the head guard is saying Ketal is first rate, and the head guard says the probability is quite high. Luke asks if there's any possibility of him being even stronger, which honestly, the head guard cannot deny. Luke can't believe a barbarian warrior of that caliber has appeared at his doorstep. This is going to be a big headache, especially since the barbarians believe might makes right. He tells the head guard to summon him at once. The very presence of such a powerful individual roaming the territory creates instability in and of itself. It would put his mind at ease to see him with his own eyes at least. The head guard tells him that it could be dangerous, but Luke is not worried. He has his knight with him after all. He asks his knight what his thoughts are, and the knight tells him that Ketal may possess some power, but at the end of the day, he is only an ignorant barbarian. The knight's own swordsmanship was taught directly by the great swordmaster, so Ketal is nothing before him. Luke nods, and tells the head guard to summon the barbarian, because he wants to speak with him personally. Ketal is with the others at an inn, and is absolutely devouring some food, causing everyone to look at him. Ketal puts a tankard of beer down, and says that the food is delicious, and he loves the atmosphere around here, since this is right up his alley. They should eat as much as they like. Ketal begins asking them questions, starting with Alessandro. He asks what kind of divine power Alessandro uses, since he did not see any while they were clearing the dungeon. Alessandro sheepishly rubs the back of his head, noting that he is still in training, so his divine power has not awakened yet. Ketal thinks that is a shame, and moves on to Hayes. He asks about Colossia, the god Hayes follows, and whether her temple is nearby. Hayes looks away, noting that it probably isn't. Colosia is generally not a well-regarded deity. She's a god shunned and cast out by the masses. Hayes, in turn, sheepishly asks him just how strong he is. The other two are pretty amazed that she had the confidence to ask this, but are also interested. Ketal is a little confused. Since it has not been long since he left the White Wasteland, he is also curious about his rank. How strong is a skeleton knight? Hayes tells him that one needs to be at least second-rate to face one. A first-rate warrior could probably defeat one as easily as he did. Ketal understands, and the proprietor sheepishly approaches Ketal, noting that it is the establishment's closing time. Ketal just apologizes for keeping the establishment open for so long, and notes that they should get going. After they do, he asks everyone if they have plans or a schedule, and they all immediately claim that they are extremely busy individuals. Seeing their adamant responses, Ketal understands and notes that this is where they part ways, it seems. He will see them all again sometime in the future, although they all hope they will never see each other again. Ketal finds a room to stay in, and thinks that this is nice. It is his first time lying in a bed since coming to this world. It's a relief he could afford a room without any issue, thanks to the dungeon reward. Compared to the White Wasteland, a place like this is a paradise. It took him a long time to earn his freedom after awakening there. He wants to experience more things. He wants an adventure, if he's honest. Maybe the sacred grounds of the elves, the magic tower, maybe even the royal capital. There are so many places to go and see. After dozing off, he wakes later that morning to a few knocks on his door. His hair is tousled from sleep. The head guard apologizes for waking him so early, and Ketal asks, "What's wrong?" The head guard clears his throat, and with a bead of sweat rolling down his cheek, notes that the Lord wishes to see him in person. Ketal realizes that the Lord is the master of the territory. Such a person wants to meet him? He has no reason to refuse. Should they head out now? He should just grab his clothes before they depart, though. The head guard is a little confused that he accepted so easily but says nothing. Ketal is impressed as they walk through the streets. When he first entered the territory, it was nighttime, so he only got a rough look around, but seeing it in the daytime, it really is interesting. He gives the head guard a thumbs up, thinking that if this is what one calls a fantasy life, then he will gladly take it. The head guard does not understand Ketal's gesture, only that Ketal seems pleased, and decides to avoid eye contact as much as possible. Eventually, they arrive at Luke's office. After hearing the knock, Luke immediately tells them to come in. He extends a hand to Ketal upon seeing him, introducing himself as Luke Barkin, the lord of this territory. Ketal grabs his hand and shakes it lightly, noting that he is pleased to meet the lord of this territory. Ketal introduces himself as the barbarian Ketal, and actually bows his head too, completely shocking Luke. Luke never expected to see a barbarian bow his head. Luke thinks that strength is everything to barbarians, but he has lived long enough to see it all. Luke is pleased despite himself. He notes that Ketal has manners and tells him to take a seat because they have a few matters to discuss. After taking a seat, Ketal looks around, taking in what a lord's castle looks like. Even in medieval fantasy, a lord's castle really is posh. He also sees a knight standing guard beside Luke. He used to play games about knights as a child, though he has never actually seen one. Knights are really cool, just as he imagined. Unfortunately, the knight mistakes Ketal's innocent admiration for killing intent. He thinks the barbarian is glaring at him with bloodlust right in front of the lord. He is a foolish wretch, it seems, and he will not leave here alive. Before he can draw his blade, though, Luke, who remains calm, tells him that the reason he called him is simple. There are a few things he wishes to verify. Ketal agrees, and Luke asks where he came from. Ketal understands why that question is important to Luke, and he explains that he comes from the coldest place in the world, from a land covered only in white. Both the knight and Luke realize that he means the White Wasteland. The barbarian of legend is standing right before them. Luke says that Ketal's claim is hard to believe, and Ketal tells him it was quite a miserable place. Whether he believes it or not is his choice. Luke then rephrases the question and asks, "Just how strong are you? What matters now is just how dangerous this man is." Ketal believes that is the wrong question, because he doesn't know the level of strength in this land. Luke understands and gives the knight a pointed look, and the knight simply nods. Luke then asks, "How about a spar with my knight?" Luke will make sure Ketal is well rewarded for it. Ketal is slightly surprised, and Luke reiterates that it's not a fight to the death or anything. Luke trusts that Ketal will keep it within reason. Ketal immediately agrees, as it sounds good to him. Sparring with the knight is something that he wants to do. In this fantasy world, knights wield mystical power and aura. A chance to see such a technique up close is really exciting. Luke, however, sees it another way. This is just a barbarian being a barbarian. No matter how polite he may seem, Ketal cannot hide his savage love for battle. They go to the arena, where Luke naturally looks on at the two combatants and tells them to begin. Hopefully, there will not be any bloodshed. He rings the bell, and the knight draws his blade and tells Ketal to consider it an honor to witness his swordsmanship. Ketal agrees and says he is looking forward to it, but the knight takes it as an insult that he's acting so relaxed. The knight vows to show him the overwhelming difference in their strength. He begins charging his aura and thrusts his sword forward, but instead of one thrust, 3 sword thrusts appear. Ketal is amazed. Ketal wonders if it is an illusion at first, but as he continues to dodge it, he sees that it is not. All 3 swords that appear before him are real. Is this what he calls swordsmanship? The knight begins fighting more seriously. It seems the best this barbarian can do is barely dodge his attacks. That is impressive in its own right. However, he has seen enough. Just as the knight is about to charge at Ketal with a more piercing attack, Ketal flicks the blade apart, shattering it into 2 before putting his hand forward against the knight's chest and sending him absolutely flying. Luke is shocked. It took only a single strike. A top-tier knight was taken down in 1 blow. Just what kind of monster has been brought onto his doorstep? Ketal asks what is wrong, and Luke just stares at him, congratulating him sheepishly on his victory. A bit later, Luke thinks about it. He's a barbarian who can beat a top-tier knight in a single strike. His strength is enormous, at least superhuman level, but that's just the minimum. There is no telling the true depths of his power. A barbarian with so much force could very well disrupt the balance of the world. In that case, he should report this to one of the few people in the vast world to hold the title of Swordmaster. Cain should be arriving soon, and Luke wonders whether the report will pique his interest. Suddenly, the Swordmaster arrives through the window, wondering what should pique his interest. Luke is naturally surprised, but then breathes a sigh of relief, noting that his hobbies are as distasteful as ever. The Swordmaster notes that he needs to have a little fun somehow. This is Cain, and he asks whether Luke is going to tell him about the matter that is supposed to interest him. Luke gets up and bows his head, noting that it's an honor to have him visit on such short notice. After a bit of explanation, they go to the knight's chambers, where he is still resting. Luke approaches him and asks how he is feeling. Having failed to notice Luke's arrival, the knight immediately gets up and says that he has been fine. In a few days, he will be back to his usual self, and he apologizes for losing. Cain says that he should be the one apologizing, since his foolish student was defeated by some no-name barbarian. However, Cain can also see that there is not a single wound on the knight. Cain heard that the armor shattered into pieces. Judging by the state of it, he would not have been surprised if this disciple of his was dead, and yet, besides some torn clothes, his body is unscathed. Was the barbarian showing mercy, perhaps? If that is the case, he is not mindless. He is someone who can control his power with great precision, and he so far exceeds a knight's level that he can show mercy. He must be at least superhuman. Both Luke and the knight suspected this, but hearing it from the Swordmaster makes it all the more real. Luke sheepishly asks, rude as it may be to ask, how do you compare to him? Cain scoffs. Ketal may have superhuman strength, but Cain is a Swordmaster. Ketal would be no match for Cain's skill, but it doesn't seem like he used aura either. To think he can command such power without aura, that should be impossible through normal means. Is this the power of a barbarian from the White Wasteland? Luke did not believe it at first, but he wonders now. Is it really true that he came from the White Wasteland? Cain thinks about it too, about a barbarian of the White Wasteland. It's a legendary human existence said to live in the White Wasteland. Perhaps, though, he's something else entirely, but that cannot be it either. If he were something else, he wouldn't have bothered showing mercy to a human, so he must be mistaken. Still, of all the times, why would someone from there appear now? Luke sees him deep in thought and asks if there's something wrong. Cain tells him it's nothing, a matter for another time perhaps. He thinks about His Majesty the Emperor and the strange requests that made people venture into the White Wasteland in the first place. He tells Luke not to worry about it right now and asks if the barbarian resides in this domain now. Luke confirms as such. He said he would be staying, so he must be at the inn they found him at. Cain understands and begins walking away, as he will have to see Ketal for himself before making a judgment. When Ketal leaves the building, the head guard asks what he plans to do now, but Ketal is not really sure. Luke has given him gold as a reward for the duel and told him that he will no longer interfere with what Ketal does in the territory. He doesn't have any specific plan, but it would be good if he had some official status. Entering dungeons every time he goes to a new territory might be a problem. The head guard tells him that if that is the case, one option is to have someone of high status sponsor him or vouch for his identity, while another is to become a mercenary. If he builds a track record as a mercenary and earns the guild's recognition, his status can be acknowledged. However, the head guard thinks that unless mercenaries reach a certain level, they are merely errand boys. With Ketal's strength, the more appropriate route would be finding a sponsor. However, Ketal is completely bewitched by the idea of a mercenary, someone who accepts requests to hunt monsters. It's the ultimate fantasy dream that's written in basically every isekai. If that's the case, he asks, where should I go to become a mercenary? The head guard tells him that there's a guild hall, and Ketal, radiating with anticipation, notes that he would appreciate it if the head guard could show him the way. Mercenaries, as everyone knows, are those who roam the world taking on requests. Some people see romance in this life, but in reality, mercenaries without status belong to the very bottom of society. Even mercenaries with some skill often die trying to clear unidentified dungeons, and they're merely fodder for all kinds of work. That's why the lowest tier of mercenary society is filthy, disgraceful, and pretty noisy. At the mercenary guild hall, a fight is underway while the others bet on who will win. Two receptionists, Sai and another pink-haired girl, ask Rosa how today's new recruits did. Rosa, a mercenary guild receptionist, tells them that it went terribly because the recruits are all weirdos. One is a lunatic claiming to be a paladin without holy power. Another is a thief, and the nun who seemed alright serves a deity nobody trusts. The pink-haired girl thinks that's pretty disappointing, and Rosa sighs. There's not a single decent person among them, and those muscle-headed mercs keep picking fights all day. If only a cool, handsome prince on a white horse would appear and rescue me from this dumb desk job. At that moment, the door opens and Ketal appears. Pretty impressed. Everyone stops what they are doing as they are shocked to see a barbarian, though Ketal is innocently confused and does not understand their stares. He sits down in front of Rosa and notes that he has come to become a mercenary. She is naturally a bit afraid and asks, why do you want to become a mercenary? Ketal explains that there are several reasons, but he heard that working as one can get one's status recognized. She confirms as such, but for a mercenary's status to be recognized, they need to build up quite a few accomplishments. Is he okay with that? Ketal agrees, so she decides to register him as a mercenary for 5 copper coins and wants his name and age. Ketal says his name, but he's not sure about his age, so Rosa just puts down something reasonable. With that, his registration is complete, and he gets a mercenary badge, which represents his status as a mercenary. He should not lose it. Ketal looks at it and grabs it with a pretty joyful and innocent expression. He asks, what kind of requests are available? Can I take a job right away? Rosa confirms this and puts forward the requests he can currently take on. Ketal looks at the list and sees that it's a bunch of stuff. Pretty dirty stuff like herb gathering, sewer cleanup, or even night patrols. Naturally, Rosa is sweating bullets because she heard barbarians are really loud. What if he suddenly lashes out? Should she maybe call for help? She begins explaining that if he wants to start with simple jobs and build up a record, he will eventually qualify for harder missions. But Ketal calmly chooses this one, which is herb gathering. Rosa asks if he's sure, and Ketal agrees, as he has no problem with it. He asks where he will gather, and Rosa explains that most of the herbs grow outside the village, and also gives him a picture of what the herb looks like. Ketal immediately heads out, and Rosa is surprised by just how calm this barbarian is. After Ketal leaves, Rosa's co-worker immediately approaches her, having been scared for her life the entire time Ketal was there. Ketal goes outside the village and sees many herbs exactly like the one shown in the picture. Apparently they're good for wounds, but they look kind of strange. Well, it doesn't matter to him. He takes his coat off and puts on his protective gear, which is a straw hat, because of course, UV rays are harmful even in another world. About 1 hour later, give or take, he returns to the mercenary guild hall, putting the gigantic bag of herbs in front of her, and asking if this is enough. She confirms as such, while wondering if he is some kind of reseller trying to strip the herb field bare. She is also surprised by how excellent their condition is. Most mercs just rip them like savages, so their value drops quite a bit. Ketal is proud of his work. He may not look it, but he's actually quite confident in his delicate touch, despite his rough appearance. Rosa gives him his reward for the request, 1 silver coin. It's enough to barely afford the cheapest meal. Still though, it is the first money he's earned through honest work, so he is naturally touched with a warm smile. He notes that this is quite satisfying. He asks whether she can give him the next request right away. Rosa is confused, as there's no way he's happy with such a little reward. This barbarian looks genuinely happy over a silver coin, and now she has doubts, as this mercenary is pretty weird too. Ketal continues taking jobs, and is already on his 4th one. Rosa found him strange after the herb gathering request, and now he has already accepted his 3rd cleaning task. Could it be that he just likes cleaning? She just decides to give him the task. Ketal goes to the warehouse he is supposed to clean, where a woman is waiting. She is completely shocked to see a barbarian accept the job. Cleaning the warehouse is a simple task. He has no trouble moving its contents. His next task is street cleaning, so Ketal picks up a broom and starts sweeping. Controlling his strength is tricky, and he chokes a few people with the dust that he creates. But there aren't any huge problems. Kane looks at this and wonders what the hell he is doing. He is clearly at least a superhuman. Some superhumans are powerful enough to shake an entire kingdom. Just by revealing his power, he could be treated with honor anywhere. Yet here he is, a barbarian who could solve anything by force doing chores. He is not doing them half-heartedly either. He is really doing them seriously with all his heart. Just why is he like this? The next day, Ketal gets up bright and early and sees the pouch of silver coins he earned. This is the reward for his first day of hard work, covering all 15 requests he completed. 15 silver coins. Naturally, he is ecstatic. He said that he would be back tomorrow, so it's time for him to begin his second day in civilization. As soon as he walks through the town, a child cries as she sees him, and people are shocked by his presence. But he doesn't seem to be bothered, or even noticing most of it. As he walks through the streets, though, he sees a library. He goes inside and immediately asks the receptionist whether he can read some books. She is naturally shocked but agrees. Ketal begins reading normally. The receptionist is completely stumped, but she sure as hell won't say anything. Kane is just as stumped. Is a barbarian reading a book? Kane is not visible, but Ketal can sense him. A barbarian is known to be brutish and pretty ignorant. Do White Wasteland barbarians have some sort of culture unlike the rest? Or is that one just special? After Ketal reads most of the history book, he gives it a pat and closes it, having learned that the Empire won in the end. A few years ago, Milena came to the White Wasteland saying she was going to sell weapons to the kingdom at war with the Empire. But the Empire won that war, it seems. The current Empire is powerful, and the Varkan kingdom is practically a vassal state. The Empire has already devoured half of the human world, and continues its expansion as if trying to swallow it whole. Ketal thinks about human conquest for a bit, but then decides that's enough about human affairs. It's time to look into something far more interesting, specifically, what's written about non-human races. This is a book compiling non-human creatures, and the fantastical things written in this book actually exist in this world. The world's greatest dwarven cave, Manhwa, overflows with rare ores that are as common as garbage. And there is also the fairy village of Pisarapia. There is also La Gemeria, the sky city of the Celestials, and Elfo Sagrado, the unreachable sanctuary of all elves, whose true location nobody knows. Even powerful rulers tried every means to locate it but failed. If that is so, he has acquired an incredible qualification to enter the Elven Sanctuary. Then he finds something rather interesting in that book. Other places just like the White Wasteland, the Demon Zones, places that reject human presence and are filled with alien things. There are only a few demon zones, but this world holds 5 exceptionally vast ones. The Silent Forest, where things die out in this complete stillness. The Abyss, which drags the world into evil. The Deep Sea, where multiple abyssal creatures live. The Hollow Pit, where nothing exists. The White Wasteland, where monstrous beings dwell. However, the beings within those zones cannot cross into the human realm. Ketal is impressed by how big this world is. The White Wasteland alone was enormous, and there are several other regions just like it. It seems that that's all the available information here, however. He gets up and thanks the receptionist for allowing him to read, as it was quite helpful. She sheepishly nods, and Ketal immediately returns to the guild, happily asking Rosa what requests are available. Kane, who is now on his second day of inspection, knows that this man is really strange, so he will have to confront him directly. That night, under a huge moon, Ketal walks the empty streets. As he handled another dozen or so requests today, even the small ones add up, which is pretty rewarding. At this pace, the day he will be acknowledged as a true mercenary will come soon enough. As he walks whistling, Kane shows himself, appearing right in front of Ketal, who notes that he's been tailing him all day. What does he want? Kane is surprised that he noticed, as he definitely suppressed his presence. No matter how sharp anyone is, detecting him should have been impossible. Ketal clutches the purse of silver coins, wondering if he is a bandit. Kane is too shocked at being called a bandit to answer, so Ketal guesses that he is right. Even though security here seems decent, there are bandits running around. Kane wonders whether Ketal will believe him if he says that he is a swordmaster. Ketal is also shocked that he's resorting to robbery at his age. It seems that the economy must be in a worse state than anticipated. However, taking him down and turning him in would make for a good record, right? Kane does not even know what to say, but this might be a good opportunity for him too. Ketal thinks he is a bandit, so engaging him directly may be one of the best ways to gauge Ketal's abilities. Before he can do anything, however, Ketal takes one step forward before disappearing completely from his view and ending up right in front of him, reaching out to grab him. Kane knows that if he stays still, he will get grabbed, so he moves behind Ketal, who is impressed, as that was not bad at all. Kane, however, knows that this bastard almost got him. If his reflexes were even slightly slower, he would have been caught, but more shocking than that, he couldn't sense a single trace of aura from this man. He moved that fast with nothing but a pure human body. He needs to forget testing, as this is the real deal now. He's going all in. He charges in at Ketal with incredible speed, but Ketal just sidesteps him and grabs his hand. Before Kane can react, Ketal twists his arm behind his back, in a hold that Kane cannot escape even with his expanded perception. Realizing that he cannot compete in raw strength, Kane decides to use his full power and release all of his aura. Ketal sees the old man become covered in a green hue, and with a blast, Kane escapes his grasp without injuring him. He's surprised that bandits have these kinds of techniques, however. Kane is stunned that Ketal still believes he is a bandit. Manifesting aura at this level is something only the elite can achieve, and Kane has cloaked his entire body in it. So why would someone capable of that resort to banditry? Ketal truly believes he is a thief. Kane reflexively manifested his aura, which can shred through solid steel with ease. A human body should have been obliterated, yet he does not even have a scratch on him. Just what kind of body can endure manifested aura without protection? Ketal approaches, not knowing what kind of trick he is using, but it's time to wrap this up. Kane instinctively reaches for his sword, but before he can draw it, Ketal stops the blade with one finger, leaving Kane absolutely shocked. Kane tries his best to unsheath his blade, but it's pretty clear that he has no chance against Ketal's strength. At this point, the contest is over. With that, Ketal has subjugated this would-be bandit. Ketal is surprised that even bandits are so unique in this fantasy world. Naturally, Ketal takes Kane to the head guard, who wonders what the hell is going on. Why is the Swordmaster Kane here? Of all places? Did a barbarian perhaps attack Sir Kane? What happens now? Ketal, however, says that he caught a bandit, shocking the head guard. He asks whether handing the bandit over to the guards will count toward his mercenary record. The head guard naturally is completely stunned, and wonders what the hell he's even seeing. This is a man who's reached the highest level of superhuman skill, the Swordmaster Kane, and that very man is caught by a barbarian, in a very humiliating position no less. The head guard says that's no bandit, and Ketal guesses that means he's an accomplice or something. The head guard straightens up and bows as he pays his respects to the Swordmaster Kane. Ketal looks at the man he is carrying like a bad puppy, and immediately refuses. This man is a bandit. Kane attacked him and tried to steal his silver coins. The head guard tells him that he really is a swordmaster. He would never mistake that face. Ketal wonders if it could be illusion magic, but the head guard points out that a mage powerful enough to do such a thing would be as respected as a swordmaster. Ketal wonders if the swordmaster is just a fancy name for some kind of bandit group, but the head guard denies it. Ketal wonders if he really is a swordmaster, and the head guard confirms as such. Ketal just looks at the head guard with an extremely confused expression, so the head guard decides to just report this to the Lord. Naturally, Luke is just as shocked to hear that Sir Kane was defeated. Ketal apologizes to Kane, as he should have let him explain. Kane also apologizes, admitting that he is to blame for not explaining himself. With that, a heavy silence falls between them. Luke watches the scene and wonders what the hell is going on. He expected Kane to seek out the barbarian for a duel, but he never thought he'd lose. Luke does not know the details, but Kane was clearly defeated, meaning the barbarian is stronger than a swordmaster. Naturally, there are levels even among superhumans. Sir Kane, who recently became a swordmaster, is likely on the lower end, but still a swordmaster is someone who earned the noble title of Master of the Blade, and the barbarian beat such a person. This makes him a completely unquantifiable being. With his head starting to hurt, Luke excuses himself. There must have been some misunderstanding, so he should let them talk. With that, he leaves. Ketal looks at Kane, who finds the situation utterly humiliating, but cannot deny that it was a perfect defeat. His pride isn't just hurt, it's in tatters like a rag. He puts his cup down with a decisive click, and formally introduces himself. He is a swordmaster, Kane. Ketal wonders if the swordmaster is his surname, so Kane explains that once one reaches the state of a swordmaster, human surnames become rather meaningless. Ketal understands but wonders whether what Kane showed him was a swordmaster's technique. Kane's eyes widen as he asks whether Ketal means the aura. Ketal looks at the aura. At first, he thought it was merely a bandit's trick and paid it no mind, but now that he knows it is a swordmaster's skill, he is fascinated. Kane tells him that this is a manifestation of mystery called aura. Ketal understands. So what he did back then was aura. He gets up from his seat and asks how he can learn to use it, and Kane is a little confused but explains that he has to manifest it by controlling the mystery. The mystery refers to the mystical energy itself. When one uses it as aura, one is a swordsman. When one uses it as mana, one is a mage. Both disciplines use the same force, so Ketal asks whether Kane would be willing to teach him that skill. Ketal admits that he is embarrassingly ignorant and asks Kane to teach him. Kane feels inclined to agree, but wonders whether Ketal really needs his guidance. Isn't Ketal stronger than Kane? Ketal sits back down and explains that he doesn't know anything about the mystery or swordsmanship. He just swings blindly. Cain tries to regain some of his confidence, as he is a sword master. He may have lost, but he did not even draw his blade, so he will teach the barbarian the way of the sword and show him its greatness, and so he will reclaim his shattered pride. He agrees. He is a sword master who uses a blade, so without a sword, he is half a man. Ketal understands. No wonder Cain seemed so weak. It's because he didn't use his blade. To be called a sword master with just that level of strength, he thought something was off. If he used a sword, he might have actually won, so he is looking forward to it. After these harsh but innocent words, Cain wonders whether his self-esteem will ever recover. Ketal thinks that he learned swordsmanship in his previous life, but this is real fantasy swordsmanship now, a strange kind of swordsmanship that manipulates aura. It is a true fantasy come to life. They go to a training hall, and Cain explains that the key trait of his swordsmanship is the embodiment of illusion and reality. When he fought his disciple, what did he see? Ketal thinks about it, and guesses it was the sword strike splitting into 3, and all of them were true attacks. Is that what he meant by embodiment? It is a technique that gives illusions real substance. Cain confirms as such. Swordsmanship is the art of merging sword and aura to wield the mystery, and the one who reaches the end of that path becomes a sword master. Cain puts aura into his blade. Amazing Ketal. But he still cannot believe this is happening. He is really teaching swordsmanship to a barbarian. To demonstrate directly, Cain sweeps his blade in a downward arc, and the sword strike splits into 5. Cain explains that many techniques create illusions using aura, but only his swordsmanship can give those illusions substance. Ketal understands, but he feels that he could reproduce the technique Cain showed earlier. Cain wonders what kind of nonsense Ketal is talking about. He devoted his entire life to the blade, combining natural talent with relentless effort, and barely attained this swordsmanship. There is no way someone could copy it after seeing it once. Ketal notes that it will be faster if he simply shows him and pulls out his axe. He takes a stance and swings the axe left and right. He uses no sword technique, moving only through brute strength, and unleashes 5 consecutive air blasts that completely shatter the wall. Cain's strike only dented the wall, while Ketal's blasts shattered it. The axe steams as Ketal asks how he did. Cain thinks it truly resembled the simultaneous strikes of his embodiment of illusion and reality, although it was produced only through overwhelming strength and speed. Even Cain was almost fooled for a moment. Cain tells him that he merely swung with force and used no technique. Ketal asks whether the result was not the same. Swordsmanship is meant for real combat, so as long as the result is similar, is that not enough? Cain can't really refute it, but it really hurts his pride. In that case, he will show him something else. He uses another technique, creating multiple images of his entire body around him and causing a gigantic explosion in their midst. That covers a pretty large area. He explains, while panting, that this is a bodily separation achieved through extreme mastery of aura. Can he copy something like this? Ketal simply steps back a bit and begins swinging his axe a little harder now, but so hard that he creates an actual tornado of power. That goes beyond what Cain could ever do. Naturally, Cain falls to his knees as his life's work, his swordsmanship, is shattered before him. Now he is merely a pitiful old man with tears in his eyes. Ketal sighs, as Cain's mentality is more fragile than he thought. He approaches him and tells him that his swordsmanship is remarkable. Ketal merely swung his axe quickly. It was not the same as what Cain did. The technique he showed wasn't a mere afterimage. It was real, and he cannot reach true aura mastery yet. Cain agrees in his own mind to save his sanity. His swordsmanship is still valuable, embodying both illusion and reality as substance. Only he can do this. That's right. The problem is not with his technique. This barbarian is just a madman. What kind of crazy person can move so fast they become a blur without using aura? That's not something any human is capable of. Ketal asks if he can teach him the true meaning of the technique, bringing Cain out of his stupor. He apologizes for letting his emotions get the better of him and clears his throat. To use a true technique, he must first learn to control aura, but to control mystery, he must first comprehend it. No mage, swordsman, or even witch can reach the higher realm without awakening the mystery. The only exceptions are those who receive power directly from the gods. Ketal wonders if the divine power is a separate thing, and Cain confirms as such. Divine powers are miracles that come directly from the gods, and are unrelated to individual ability. Mystery is the power within oneself, and how a person wields it determines everything. Ketal understands that to use aura, wield mana, or control spirits, the foundation of everything is understanding mystery. Cain explains that the most basic stage is perception, awakening to, and sensing mystery. Ketal asks whether anyone can do it, and Cain says that only those with talent can. Those who can sense mystery are called third rank. The ability to handle mystery is divided into 5 grades, with third rank being the first level. Ketal remembers his past conversation with Milena and realizes that she was right. Kane notes that it is merely a convenient classification. There are huge differences even within a rank, and the boundaries are unclear. For now, Ketal only needs to understand the concept. They will begin with the first step, mystery perception. Kane sits down with Ketal and tells him to feel everything around him and sense mystery. To sense mystery means awakening a perception he has never felt before and expanding his senses to the fullest. He should feel even the lightest wind brushing past him and the touch of the earth beneath him. He should perceive everything as the wind sways through the leaves, and within it all he should sense a separate presence. However, Ketal doesn't really feel much of anything. This surprises Kane, as he thought someone of his strength would sense it pretty easily. It's not a general rule, but those who are strong, even without mana, tend to sense the mystery easily, but he is an exception perhaps. He asks if it's a peculiarity of the White Wasteland, but Ketal wouldn't know. Nobody around him has ever sensed anything like the mystery. Kane notes that sensing mystery is not easy for most people, so he will try channeling energy directly into him to open the path to the mystery. Ketal is touched that he's going to transfer aura and agrees, noting that he will ready himself. Kane gets to his feet and moves behind Ketal, noting that he should relax completely, focus inward, and center his senses within his body. Now he should feel the aura flowing into him. However, as soon as Kane begins doing that, he starts to wonder once again if this man is even human. He feels like a solid stone. Just how compressed is this muscle mass? Ketal wonders what's wrong, and Kane apologizes for letting his mind wander. With that, he begins to transfer aura. What's important is awakening the mystery path within. Finding that path is the goal. It's not that hard on its own. However, Kane keeps probing with his own aura, but he cannot find anything inside Ketal's body, or, more precisely, he simply cannot reach it. No matter how far he extends his aura, he touches nothing and senses nothing. It's like swimming in an eternal abyss, like being crushed by the pressures of the deep. He clears his throat and says it doesn't work, confusing Ketal. Ketal wonders whether Kane is saying that he lacks talent. Kane disagrees. This process merely channels aura into Ketal, but it was not enough to find his mystery. Kane must locate a path within him and awaken the dormant force. Kane tells him that he simply could not find Ketal's path to mystery. Ketal wonders if this means he cannot sense it at all, but once again, Kane disagrees. He couldn't even confirm if it was there in the first place. Ketal's body is unlike anything Kane has seen before. To find the path to mystery, aura must reach deep inside Ketal, but his body is too dense. Kane's aura could not reach far enough into him. He's never even heard of raw physicality interfering with aura like this. Ketal understands and wonders if he will never be able to awaken mystery. Kane cannot say for certain either way. Ketal should perhaps consult a swordmaster more skilled with aura, or perhaps even go to the mage tower. Either way, he apologizes for not being able to help him. Ketal says it's fine, as there is still a chance, and that's enough for him. Ketal gets up and notes that he has learned a lot thanks to Kane, so he appreciates his guidance. Kane looks at the man and thinks that every barbarian he's encountered before was uncontrollable. They looted, drank, and lived in violence. Society naturally cast them out, but this one is entirely different. Kane asks whether Ketal would ever consider joining the kingdom, and Ketal wonders what he means. Kane notes that he means pledging loyalty to the kingdom and receiving a rank. With his strength, he could rise high. Kane would even sponsor him. Ketal appreciates the offer, but he refuses, as he does not want to be tied down. Kane makes the offer because with Ketal, they might even shake off the Empire's control. Kane wonders, even so, wouldn't a noble rank tempt him at least? Isn't that enough of an offer? Ketal, however, chooses to enjoy his own freedom. With this, Kane understands Ketal's resolve. Ketal thanks Kane once again, saying that he will never forget him. After they part ways, Kane walks through the halls and thinks that he was being a ridiculous old man. He thought he could control him, even for a moment, but that's impossible. That barbarian acts of his own will. He may work with others, but that's it. He keeps his thoughts entirely to himself, and not knowing what he is thinking may make him even more difficult than other barbarians. A true barbarian of the White Wasteland. He sighs as he looks out over the garden, thinking about the Emperor's plan to conquer the demon realm, and wondering what the Emperor is thinking. He shares this news with Luke, who is not surprised that the Emperor wants to conquer the demon realm. Kane is furious because people are dying in the name of reconnaissance, yet the Emperor is completely serious about the campaign. Maybe he thinks he's some kind of reborn emperor from the past. Either way, it is a matter for the future. They haven't even conquered all of humanity's domain yet. Luke asks whether it is only a matter of time, and Kane confirms that it is. The Gehent Kingdom is still part of the Empire. Kane and Luke could be summoned at any point, so Luke should be prepared. Kane sighs and leans back into his chair, as this world has become a mess, and now the Emperor's half mad. It is truly a headache. Luke senses the double meaning in his words and asks if those rumors are true. Cain confirms as such. The demons have begun to move. Dungeon outbreaks aren't normal either, and it's not confirmed, but some say the taint of the demon realm is finally leaking out. Something is happening, and whatever it is, it will be bad for humanity. Then again, maybe the strangest thing that could have happened has already happened. Luke agrees, and Cain asks what Luke thinks about Ketal. Luke does not really know, but Ketal is at least not an enemy. Beyond that, neither of them can say. The next day, Ketal walks through the streets, but he can see that, left and right, people are scared of him and ducking to get out of his way. He wonders, are they scared of him? Perhaps because of his clothes? Maybe it's because he's not wearing proper clothing. Well, he does have a beast-hide vest, which is fine, but it doesn't really scream civilized. Naturally, he's completely misunderstanding, but he makes up his mind to buy some civilized clothing. He goes to a tailor who welcomes him inside, but immediately freezes when he sees the barbarian. Ketal says that he would like to buy some clothes. The tailor immediately apologizes profusely because he doesn't think there's anything in his size. Ketal finds that troublesome and asks whether there is another way. The tailor notes that if he is willing to wait, they could make a custom order just for him. Ketal understands. If that is an option, he would like to place a custom order. The tailor immediately agrees, eager to get Ketal out of his shop. They will contact him as soon as it's ready. However, the tailor wonders whether he will survive if Ketal dislikes the finished clothes. On the road to the guild hall, Ketal finds a shiny gemstone that glows with a beautiful light. He puts it in his pouch, noting that he will ask at the guild hall about it. He goes to Rosa at the guild and gives her the stone, wondering if she knows what it is. As he picked it up on the way here, she doesn't recognize it at first, but it doesn't look like a normal gemstone. The surface is pretty smooth, and it seems like it's been carved or worked on by someone. There are no markings or names, but her eyes slowly grow unfocused as she becomes bewitched and suddenly feels that it is immensely valuable. Ketal wakes her up with a loud snap of his fingers, leaving her a little dazed. He asks if she's all right, and she wonders what he means. Ketal tells her she looked like she was pretty entranced by it, but they should ignore that for now. Rosa looks at the orb again and says it's pretty hard to figure out. It feels like there's some strange energy coming from it. Does he want it appraised? Ketal appreciates the offer, but he would rather investigate it himself because that is part of the fun. Are there any jobs available today? Rosa confirms as such and pulls out the request forms, while Ketal is glad to see that they contain the usual work. He works until the evening, earning another pouch filled with silver coins. He thinks this day was pretty fulfilling, but he also wonders what this orb is. Rosa looked quite strange while she was looking at it. Does it have that kind of function? Suddenly, though, he hears a voice in his head beckoning him to come. It's pretty clear that the voice is trying to lead him somewhere, and he can see a map inside of his head. Although it doesn't really have the bewitching effect on him, he guesses it's some kind of domination magic. Sensing that something is wrong, he decides to make his way there. He begins following the path the orb is leading him to, and eventually ends up at the entrance of a dark cave. He smiles as he begins to explore it, and the lich inside the cave is glad to see that another sacrifice has walked in. This time, it is just some barbarian big enough to make a good offering. At the very least, that makes 10. Now he can't believe how easy it is. Soon, even resurrection will be possible. In the past, during the age of the Great War, when many kingdoms fell, one evil mage who manipulated and disturbed people's emotions was behind it all. He controlled the minds of countless kings, incited wars, and ruled over the kingdoms. But eventually, his atrocities crossed the line and caught up with him. He was hunted down by the heroes. However, just before he fell, he had already transferred his soul into a life vessel, allowing him to become a lich. Liches are beings that infuse a soul into a life vessel, undying until that vessel is destroyed. Thus, the once world-dominating evil mage became a lich and began planning his resurrection, since he needed many lives to be sacrificed for his revival. He settled near a remote fiefdom and began spreading bewitching orbs, slowly luring out sacrifices. He offered sacrifices to form the mana core needed for his revival, and planned to conquer the world once again using the great power he possessed. His goal steadily drew closer to success. He chose this remote territory because he needed to grow his power in secret. That is why the presence of a barbarian here is unusual. He is surprised that a creature from the north has come such a long way. Judging by his size, he will make a fine offering too. The orb was enchanted with a special effect. It only lures in those who have not awakened to the mystery. Therefore, those drawn in by the orb are people ignorant of it. That would mean this barbarian is just another ordinary soul with no ability to sense mystery. He seems unaffected, but it must be a fluke. He will come, and he will be sacrificed to usher in his resurrection. Ketal eventually arrives at a pretty big wooden door, and steps inside to meet face to face with the Lich. He is immediately amazed to see a real one. Lichdom is a realm attained only by mages who have reached the extreme. A Lich is the ultimate fantasy villain, and Ketal cannot believe he is seeing one in person. The Lich is a little confused and asks who Ketal is. Was he not lured by the orb? Now Ketal understands. So that's how he's been luring people here, right? The Lich is a little confused, as he does not sense any mystery from him. In other words, he's just a normal barbarian. If that truly is the case, then he must have some kind of mental protection artifact, and a high-grade one, likely powerful enough to block his senses. He doesn't know how a barbarian could ever possess such a thing, but it seems like he got lucky and stumbled upon an artifact. Ketal says he does not have anything of the sort, but the Lich does not believe his apparent lies. He tells him that if he had quietly fallen under the spell, he could have died painlessly, but now he will have to crush him by force. He summons 2 skeletal minions to beat Ketal, and they immediately charge in at Ketal. Ketal guesses that this is just a dungeon with an evil Lich inside, another fantasy adventure for him. One of the skeletons rushes in, but he slaps it across the face, completely pulverizing the skull. Once again, they are even flimsier than he expected, especially compared with the skeletons in the previous dungeon. The Lich begins to sweat a little, if such a thing is possible, and wonders if that tongue of his will still work after his arms and legs are gone. He summons many more skeletons and orders them to charge all at once. Ketal casually punches them apart, taking them out with very little effort. The Lich is completely stunned, and Ketal is glad that he learned from Kasan. If he destroys the skeletons' heads, they will die. However, since his opponent is a Lich, Ketal figured he would at least summon a Death Knight or some other powerful undead. Can he really summon only skeletons? This wounds the Lich's pride, and now he is done playing nice. Using the gem inside of his staff, he gives rise to something else, a skeleton knight. Ketal didn't expect to see another one so soon, but perhaps since it was created by a Lich, this one might be different. The Lich beckons the skeleton knight to charge in, and Ketal is getting excited. As the skeleton knight prepares to strike him down, Ketal unleashes a punch into the knight, sending it flying into the ground. Although it has been mostly shattered, it still has not given up. Ketal is surprised to see that it is tougher than the rest. The Lich orders the knight to unleash its mana to the fullest and charge in with abandon, becoming a missile of fury and death. The attack likely will not do anything to Ketal. Ketal simply stares at the skeleton, believing that it's a little too try-hard, and clenches his fist, punching it so hard in the face that the blow sends the skull through the ribcage and causes the entire skeleton to shatter when it hits the ground. The Lich looks at this with a wide-eyed expression, and Ketal steps over the remnants of the skeleton knight, thinking that this was a little more unusual, but not that different in the end. Is that all? The Lich wonders who this man even is. He still doesn't sense any mystery from him. If he were using an artifact, he would sense mana too, but there's none of that. Purely by his own strength? Is something like that even possible? Karthos realizes that Ketal is quite special, so he decides to deal with him personally. He should consider this an honor. Suddenly, a mass of black miasma flows towards Ketal, and he is dragged into a world of darkness. The Lich hopes he is afraid. He should be very afraid. He shall pay the price for daring to trespass upon his sanctuary. Ketal is a little confused, as he came only because the orb told him to. Didn't he spread those orbs? The Lich can't really refute this. In fact, everyone who ended up here had been lured by his orbs, and the barbarian was no exception. He tells him to shut it. He is a great and mighty sorcerer, the one who brought 5 kingdoms down. He is Karthos Bernulia. Ketal wonders why names are so long in this world, as the Elf Queen's was pretty long as well. Karthos tells him to become the cornerstone of his resurrection, summoning dark, malevolent power from his staff and sending it hurling towards Ketal. It does not physically harm him, but it makes his eyes spiral, as this is magic that controls human emotions. It draws out negative feelings and traps its victims in them, rendering them mentally broken. It's a unique spell developed by Karthos himself, nearly invincible considering how little mana it consumes. A mere barbarian who can't even wield the mystery stands no chance against such powerful magic. Now what will he do? There is clearly something unusual about that barbarian. Since Ketal is not wearing any artifacts, Karthos decides to capture and study him. He snaps his fingers, summoning a skeleton to take him away. The skeleton begins walking toward Ketal, but Ketal kicks it away before it can obey Karthos's command, shocking the Lich once again as the impact creates another crater in the cave. He wonders how something like this is even possible. He was sure the mind control spell worked perfectly. Ketal wonders why Karthos was merely standing there and watching. Was he planning to use skeletons again? That's pretty boring. Humans are creatures naturally ruled by emotion, no matter how powerful they may be, or how broken they are deep inside their hearts. They all carry some form of negativity. That is why there's no way to resist emotional control magic. However, Ketal is a dumbass and wonders if he can't use something like fireballs or magic missiles. The Lich does not entertain that question and cannot understand how Ketal is still standing, but how dare he compare his magics to such low-tier things. He gathers all of the murky currents, a wave that is not of form or substance, and commands it to swallow the world and drown all clarity in chaos. Ketal is completely bewitched by this cool-looking spell, and the Lich unleashes it upon him, telling him to be utterly consumed. It crashes into Ketal with the force of a typhoon, and the Lich laughs, believing victory is his, but he can't celebrate for long, as he begins to cough up some sort of dark substance. He has clearly overdone it, spending all of his mana except the bare minimum needed to hold his body together. Even so, Ketal remains standing and wonders whether that is all. The Lich does not even know what to say at this point. How the hell did that not work? He used the strongest dark spell in his entire arsenal. Even if a great hero were to be struck by it, their mind would have shattered utterly. Ketal thinks it was pretty impressive, but he did not feel anything from it. If that's the end of his show, then it seems that it's his turn now, right? Now the Lich understands. He came here knowing who he was. Yes, that confirms it. Ketal wonders what the hell he's talking about, but the Lich continues ranting. He laughs, as this was naturally the work of the Empire. Are they that afraid of him? Their intelligence network is impressive, however, to track him down this quickly, but he will rise again. He will shatter their blades and rule the world once more. He heard that deep within the Empire lies a human breeding ground, a place where countless unique talents are raised. That barbarian must have come from there. He is a blade forged solely to kill him, an assassin. Even so, he is Karthos. He will kill him and overturn the Empire. Ketal wonders if he just went insane with defeat, and suddenly the vessel behind him lights up. The Lich falls to the ground as his soul rushes into Ketal. Karthos enters the barbarian's body and tries to devour his mind. After doing this, he will have to live in that body forever, unless he can become a Lich again, but he has no other option. However, inside of Ketal's mental realm, it is pretty clear that it's over. He's never seen a mental world like this one, and something is seriously wrong. Just perceiving this place corrupts and collapses his mind, and he can now understand that this is not the Empire. Even the Empire could not create something like this. His mind begins to collapse. With that, Karthos's final thoughts fade away. Ketal is merely confused. The black swirling effect was rather cool, but that was all. Isn't a Lich supposed to be the final evolution of a mage? He was really curious about what kind of magic he would use. Well, Liches in this world aren't that impressive. Either way, it seems that he cleared the dungeon, so he should claim the reward. He picks up the staff and wonders if this helps him cast spells. If he has this, perhaps he can use magic. He takes the mana stone from the staff and decides to keep it in his pocket. He also takes the life vessel, since it belongs to the Lich, and must be where Karthos kept his soul. He will ask Rosa to appraise it. With that, he guesses that he is done collecting the rewards, but there's something suspicious around here. Using his inhuman perception, he spots a hidden room, and with a tap, its entrance begins to open. Inside, he doesn't find any sort of gold, but he finds a hidden sacrificial chamber, where a bunch of people are lined up ready to be sacrificed. Ketal wonders who these people are, and waves a hand in front of their faces, but he doesn't get any sort of reaction. He decides to head back to the estate for now. Once he explains the situation there, they will probably send people over to take care of this. He goes to the guild hall, and Rosa welcomes him, noting that he's a bit early today. Ketal confirms that he is. He has a few things to deal with. It's about the orb he showed her yesterday. He explains everything, but Rosa believes he's joking, thinking that a Lich, one of only 5 in the entire world, could not be in some backwater place like this. To prove it, Ketal brings out the Lich's life vessel, wondering if she could appraise it. This makes it clear to Rosa that he was not joking in the slightest. Rosa is gobsmacked by what she's seeing, and Ketal also mentions that there were some people inside as well. He thought about bringing them out, but their minds were gone, so he just left them. It would probably be for the best if the guild sent someone to check on them. Rosa is shocked at first, but now that she thinks about it, there have been several disappearance cases in their territory, but there has been no news of them being found. If that was really the work of a Lich, she has to do something right away. She tells him to wait a moment, as she will call someone immediately. The head guard appears a few moments later, asking if he really met a Lich, and Ketal just waves at him, noting that it's nice to see him again. Ketal tells him that the Lich has been taken care of, so there is nothing to worry about. It's not really a big deal. When Ketal tells him that the Lich's name was Karthos Bernulia, the head guard is shocked. Ketal asks whether he knows of Karthos, and the head guard replies that everyone does. Karthos was a sorcerer who flipped the world upside down over a century ago. He is the creator of magic that manipulates emotions, causing chaos throughout the land. He drove kings mad and brought ruin to 5 kingdoms in total. Ketal understands, but claims he wasn't really that impressive. He was just doing weird things on his own and ended up self-destructing. The head guard believes that's absurd. A mage like Karthos self-destructed. He requests a more detailed explanation, but Ketal does not have much else to say, as that's literally what happened. The head guard just stays silent for a moment and tells him to wait, as he will go and inform the Lord. When Luke hears what happened, he is also shocked and asks whether they are sure it was a lich. Could it have been some other kind of monster? The head guard explains that, based on the testimonies of the people who were rescued, it is unlikely. They also have physical proof of his phylactery. Luke is amazed. A lich of that level hiding near the estate. The Empire may dispatch investigators at any point now. Of all times, with Kane also away from the estate, this has become a real headache. He tells the head guard to prepare to send word to the capital. Luke notes that they were fortunate. If the barbarian had not found it, they might have been the first victims. Karthos was likely in the midst of resurrecting fully as a lich, and things were likely not in a normal state. Luke notes that this seems likely, but even so, this was a remarkable feat. They also need to give Ketal a fitting reward, assuming they can offer anything adequate. The next day, just as the sun begins to shine through the windows, Luke is awakened by someone calling his name. He gets out of bed and tells the maid who was calling for him to come in. She immediately rushes inside and explains that the Inquisitor of the Sun God, Lord Aquas, has arrived at the estate. Luke hurriedly finishes dressing and wonders why the Inquisitor of the Sun God is here. They sit down, and Luke says it is an honor to meet someone like her, introducing himself as Luke Barkin, the Lord of the estate. The woman also introduces herself as Aquas, the Inquisitor of the Sun God, Judge of Heresy in his name. This is the youngest person ever appointed as an Inquisitor, the one who beheaded 7 warlocks who had signed pacts with demons and single-handedly disrupted a massive ritual. She is currently the most powerful Inquisitor on the continent too. Even the Empire defers to the Sun God's church. She holds power that exceeds a provincial lord. Why would someone like that be here? She notes that the estate seems to have been rather eventful lately, and Luke confirms as such. There was a small issue with the dungeon near the estate, but it has been resolved. Might he ask, however, the reason for her visit? She explains that she is here to speak with him about a divine oracle. However, before she shares the contents, may she hear about exactly what happened? Luke nods and explains everything, leaving her surprised to hear that a barbarian actually defeated the lich. Luke also adds that it may have been Karthos Bernulia. Aquas's expression naturally falters, and she notes that she would need something to confirm. Luke brings out the phylactery, and Aquas's hand naturally flies to her necklace, wondering what in the world happened, and asking if this barbarian is still in the estate. Luke confirms he still resides in the territory, but Aquas wonders, a barbarian defeating Karthos? Is something like that even possible? Luke confirms as such. Even Lord Kane has been defeated by him. Aquas realizes that a new power has emerged after all. Which tribe is this barbarian from exactly? Luke explains that he claims to be from the White Wasteland, and she wonders if it is the legendary White Wasteland. How did a barbarian come from there in the first place? How could a being from a demon zone be outside of it? Perhaps this barbarian is why her god called her here. She asks whether she may meet that barbarian in person. Ketal looks at the stone he got from the lich and wonders how he's supposed to use it. It looks like some kind of artifact that supports magic. He will just have to ask a mage about it later. He suddenly remembers he had an appointment, and seeing the sun shining so brightly, he guesses it's about time. Before all this, the head guard came to him and explained that the Inquisitor of the Sun God had requested a meeting with him. The meeting will take place at the church. When he meets her, he should show proper respect. Ketal told him not to worry, and now he leaves his room with the head guard, saying that they should depart. In this world, gods actually exist. They bestow power directly, and may descend even in person. The place where those who serve them gather is called the church, as anyone would know. But what makes a fantasy church different? That's what Ketal wants to know. As they approach, he is a little amazed by the architecture, and the head guard notes that someone will guide him once inside, as he cannot go further in. Ketal understands and steps inside, becoming even more amazed by how clean it is. A few nuns welcome him, and one of them says that the Inquisitor Aquas is waiting for him and offers to guide him to her room. The nun guides him there. Aquas immediately introduces herself, and Ketal introduces himself as the barbarian. He's surprised to see an Inquisitor so young. She must be quite capable. Aquas is a little confused by his smile, as she doesn't really understand what it means, and Ketal asks the reason for the meeting here in the first place. Aquas explains that it's about the recent dungeon incident. Karthos, the one he claims he defeated, has committed grave atrocities across the entire world. He eventually decided to follow the path to becoming a lich. Only heroes could stand against him. Ketal heard about that, but the Karthos he saw was a lich flailing about on his own, and ended up self-destructing. It appears she does not believe him either, but he can only speak of what he saw. Aquas understands and asks whether he would permit her god to witness the conversation directly. If he lies in the sun god's presence, there will be a divine reaction. Ketal understands that it is like a divine lie detector, Aquas guesses that even if he is not a normal barbarian, he is still, at the end of the day, a barbarian. There is no way he would agree to something like this. However, Ketal wonders why he would refuse. This is the perfect chance to experience divine power himself, so Ketal tells her to proceed right away. Aquas is a little confused about his excitement and asks if he really won't be uncomfortable about having a god observe him. Ketal wonders why it would bother him, as he has nothing to hide. He has not told a single lie since he stepped foot into this territory. Aquas understands. So now they will begin. She begins praying to her god, he who watches from the highest places, he who observes the sun itself. She beseeches him to watch with his gaze and reveal any falsehoods in this place. A holy light permeates throughout the church as Ketal begins to feel something, a presence beyond the light, something massive, a being that cannot be described by human words. However, the emotion it conveys is clearly confusion, maybe at him. Aquas doesn't really feel any of that, and is just thankful there's no divine reaction. Aquas declares that they will begin, and that no falsehood will be permitted within the room. At her words, Ketal nods. They should get things underway then. Under the gaze of the sun god, the conversation begins. Ketal answers clearly about the dungeon just as he had before, and there is no negative reaction. In other words, everything he says is true. Karthos, who was likely preparing to resurrect himself, must have been weakened, or at least that's what Aquas thinks. If Karthos had been able to use magic, this barbarian wouldn't be here right now. Ketal asks whether her doubts have been cleared. Aquas confirms that they have and apologizes for her rudeness. He says it's fine, as he quite enjoyed it as well. Now that that's over, Aquas wants to ask him a more personal question. She takes a deep breath and asks whether he truly came from the White Wasteland. Ketal immediately says that he is from there, and she is surprised by his immediate answer. Is this the Ashen Barbarian from the Emperor's legend, perhaps? Now Ketal wants to ask something too. Why did she come to this domain? A little more sheepishly than before, Aquas tells him that she had some personal business to attend to. But Ketal wonders, is that business confirming that he is an unholy being? Aquas swallows, not knowing what he means, but Ketal rephrases his words for her. He means the gaze of her god. Ketal is not sure what exactly it meant, but for the god to look down directly isn't something that happens often. It's too much power for just detecting lies, or at least he'd think so. Aquas wants to deny it, but under the gaze of a god, no falsehood is permitted, not even her own. She confirms as such, and Ketal wonders if he was the target from the beginning. She says that it's not quite so, as there was a divine revelation. When she visited the domain, she thought he might be the subject of that revelation, but in the end, it seems that she had nothing to worry about. She apologizes for hiding her intentions. Ketal says it doesn't matter. He found it interesting in his own way, so he asks one more thing. What did this divine revelation say? Aquas is a little more apprehensive about this question. Normally, one is not supposed to share the contents of a divine revelation. She begins explaining, but her words are not revealed. Afterward, Luke finds Aquas in one of the estate's hallways, where she appears deeply troubled. He asks whether something is wrong, and Aquas confirms that there is. She met the barbarian, but it only left her more confused. He is indeed the barbarian from the White Wasteland. That much has been confirmed. She did not obtain any information about the interior of the White Wasteland. Luke had hoped Ketal's claim was a lie, but it has now been confirmed beyond doubt. If this gets out, the world will certainly be in an uproar, because many would seek to explore the White Wasteland. The Emperor would be especially interested. If he moves, there will be chaos. Aquas understands his concern and tells him not to worry about that. Aquas says that the church will handle the Karthos matter on its end, and keep the barbarian's existence quiet. Luke says that's a real relief, and wonders if all the barbarians of the White Wasteland are like him. Aquas tells him that's unlikely. If they were all like him, they would have already left the White Wasteland and conquered the entire world, which is true. Even without him, there are many barbarians in the world already. Their combat ability is considerable, but they are fools. That's the innate limitation. However, what if those top-tier powers also gained intelligence? Now that Luke thinks about it, he's heard the current king of the barbarians is quite different too. He supposedly possesses both strength and intellect. Aquas confirms as much. She only met that man once, but he was definitely unlike any typical barbarian. Luke understands and thinks that if those two meet, it would certainly be quite a spectacle. Although Aquas does not share his enthusiasm, Luke now realizes that he said something rather foolish. The relationship between barbarians and those who serve the gods is strained. That is why their growing power is not a matter to treat lightly. He also wonders what exactly was in that divine revelation that made her need to meet him alone. Aquas explains that she had to confirm something, whether he was a pure human or something merely mimicking that. Luke asks what that revelation was, and Aquas explains it again. However, her words are not revealed. Luke, hearing this, immediately invites the barbarian back to his office and hands him some tea, hoping that he's doing well. Ketal confirms as such. Thanks to his leniency, he is living quite comfortably. So why exactly has Luke called him this time? Luke explains that, as a lord, he has a few things to say to him. First, he wants to thank him, as he saved this domain from the Lich Karthos. Had Karthos fully revived, this little domain would have fallen without anyone able to do anything. Luke also apologizes. Ketal does not understand why, so Luke explains that Ketal's defeat of Karthos will not be made public. Defeating Karthos is an achievement, a tremendous one at that, but it must not reach the Emperor's ears. If he finds out, he will act personally, so it's better to give someone else the glory. Ketal doesn't really mind at all. Still, Luke does not know whether this makes up for it, but he has prepared a reward for saving the domain. He snaps his fingers, and his butler arrives, presenting the reward to Ketal. Luke notes that it is no ordinary reward, and tells Ketal to see it for himself. Ketal takes the pouch, opens it, and is surprised by what he sees. And Luke explains that it is a pocket-type artifact. He can store items in it as long as they fit within the pocket's internal space. The space is roughly the size of this entire room. Ketal is surprised to see a magical object. This is the first time he's seen one in person. Luke continues explaining that even if the item is bigger than the leather pocket opening, he can still put it in. Ketal decides to test it out, taking his axe in one hand and trying to put it inside of the pouch. It doesn't look like it would fit in at first, but then it just gets sucked in. Luke explains that to take something out, he should put his hand in and think of the item. Ketal immediately does so, completely amazed. Luke hopes he likes it, and Ketal confirms that he does, and says that he will make good use of it. Luke guesses that they can wrap this up for now. What remains is the oracle he heard, combined with Cain's warning about abnormal creatures emerging from the demon realm. It certainly doesn't bode well at all. The oracle Aquas shared with both Ketal and Luke foretold that a great evil would descend here and spread across the entire realm. Barkan Domain has many villages closely connected to it, so the villages keep regular contact with each other. One day, a village suddenly stopped responding. At first, nobody found it strange, but after a few days of no contact, people were sent to check. Those people did not return. The Lord sent guards after them, but they did not return either. Only then did the Lord realize that something was happening. Ketal goes to the guild the next day and asks what requests there are. Rosa tells him that there is an urgent request from the Lord. It is a request to investigate the village they lost contact with a few days ago. All he needs to do is go and check it. It's a simple dispatch request, but the reward is quite large. Ketal, after a bit of deliberation, accepts because it sounds interesting. Maybe it will be a small adventure. Rosa expects as much. After preparing himself, he joins the others who accepted this mission and sees that Hayes is also there. She is surprised to see him, not entirely because of him, but also because of the clothes that he now wears. He explains that he had them custom made. The ones he wore in the White Wasteland were getting pretty worn out. Hayes notes that it is quite a unique design, and Ketal says that he requested the design himself. Hayes wonders if he also accepted this request, and he confirms as such. He could not refuse such an interesting job after all. He also wonders why she is alone. Didn't Alessandro and Kassan come? She explains that they probably heard about the request, but they refused. Ketal looks around and sees that there are fewer people than he initially expected. The request is simple, and the reward is big. He expected quite a few to show up, but there are not even 10 in total. Hayes explains that this is a slightly dangerous request, which confuses Ketal, as the request itself does not seem that complicated. Hayes confirms that it is pretty simple, and the reward is generous, but there are rumors that the guards who left have not returned. It doesn't seem like such a simple request once one looks at the facts. Even so, Ketal believes there are too few. He thought at least 10 would come. Hayes inches closer conspiratorially and notes that another rumor explains the low turnout. Aquas will also accompany them on this request. Not many mercenaries dare travel alongside the heretic inquisitor of the sun god. Hayes just hopes Aquas is not planning to do anything to her, but Ketal says that won't happen. She's polite and kind. Hayes is surprised that he knows her, and Ketal confirms as such. She's a friend, after all. Before Hayes can register the shock, Ketal just walks up to her and notes that it's good to see her again. Aquas does not recall becoming friends with him, and Ketal laughs and admits that she caught him and suggests that they become friends from now on. Aquas just decides to let it go for now and looks past him, wondering if his companion is also a worshipper of a different god. She means Colossia, of course. Ketal is impressed that she knows and asks if that's a problem. Aquas doesn't see it as such. The followers of Colossia are currently in a period of rest, as far as she knows. Only those in high-ranking positions remain active. Looking at the sheepish woman in front of her, Aquas assumes that Hayes must hold a high-ranking position within the order. Eventually, the head guard arrives too, and Ketal is glad to see him again. The head guard, seeing that all of the participants who accepted the request are here, notes that they will now depart for the lost village. As everyone walks, the atmosphere is pretty quiet. Ketal thinks that gathering like this feels as though they have formed a raid party. He still has some questions, so he approaches Aquas and asks whether her participation means the time from the oracle has come. She is a little surprised by his sudden presence, and after a bit of deliberation, she explains that she cannot say. The god did not reveal the exact time or place. It might just be something simple, like the village simply losing contact, but there is still a chance that this incident is connected. Ketal is pretty satisfied with this answer, as he remembers what she said about the descent of a greater evil. That certainly seems like fun. Eventually, the group arrives at the village entrance, but they are met by silence. The head guard asks Aquas what she senses, but she does not feel a thing. The head guard hopes that they just ran away or something and tells them to spread out and look for any sort of tracks. Everyone understands, but the head guard remains at the entrance for a moment. The village could host at most 100 people, yet it is impossible for all of them to vanish without leaving a single trace. There must be some sort of clue around here, so they begin the search. One of the adventurers finds something rather strange and goes to report it to the head guard. He has found food, and it is not cold. It was prepared only moments ago, as it's still warm. The head guard goes to check it himself and wonders what in the world this is. Contact was lost at least several days ago. Since then, many were dispatched here, yet none returned. He asks if there's any trace of the villagers, but the adventurer says there's nothing, not a single sign of people leaving or hiding. This confuses the head guard even further, and he tells them that, for now, they should keep searching. There are signs of life, but no trace of humans. How could something like this happen? As the evening turns into a cooler night, the head guard arrives at another section of the village and asks what they found. The adventurer explains that it is basically the same everywhere. There is proof that people were here until recently, but there is not a single trace of the people themselves. The head guard asks Aquas if she knows anything, but she does not. The head guard asks Ketal, but Ketal has not found anything and cannot sense any presence either. Ketal suggests asking that woman whether she knows anything. The head guard wonders what he is talking about, but Ketal gestures with his head. Did they not notice there's someone over there? The head guard is surprised, not only because he did not sense the woman's presence, but also because she was not there when they entered the village. When did she appear? The woman lets out a melodic laugh, noting that this is rather interesting. She approached unnoticed and camouflaged herself perfectly, yet he still noticed her. Ketal scoffs. A stranger showed up, and she thought he would not notice? The woman bows slightly and says that is not what she meant. Normally, he should not even be able to perceive her. Even the Inquisitor of the Sun God did not notice. After all, he doesn't seem like he's awakened to mystery either. So who is he? An unexpected harvest for sure. The head guard, hearing her words, immediately orders everyone to spread out and turns to Aquas, whose expression falters completely because she cannot sense anything at all. Everyone is shocked that even the Inquisitor of the highest-ranking church could not detect it. This means one of two things. Either she is not evil or demonic at all, or she is such a high-ranking evil that detection is impossible. The woman coos gently that this is a shame. She would have liked to follow them and see their domain. Well, she's decided now. Since this barbarian is so amusing, she will drag him into hell as her slave. Dream girl, TBH. With a snap of her fingers, she unleashes a hollow purple and begins rising in the air with newly grown wings, shocking everyone who is looking at her. The head guard tells everyone to run and get out of this place. However, the domain expansion is holding them in place. She explains that they cannot leave because the village is her domain. Nobody can escape without her consent, and they are all her prey. Everyone is naturally extremely shaken, but Ketal remains unconcerned and asks if that really is a demon. Hayes confirms that it is, and a named one at that. She begins praying to Colossia and begging the goddess to save her. Ketal just pats her on the head and tells her to calm down, as he is here, all-might-sounding ass. However, he also wonders what it means for a demon to have a name. Hayes explains that not every being called a demon in this world is powerful. They are merely referred to as demons for convenience, but in reality they are only fragments of evil and demonic energy. There exist beings, however, who can be called demons. They are born in the cradle of darkness without parents, and by their own will they claim a title. These are true demons. No matter who they are, demons with names possess enough power to shake an entire kingdom. Ketal understands that this one truly is a named demon. Hayes confirms this and says that, judging by the shape of its horns, the demon must be a Setiar. who first appeared centuries ago. Why would such a being emerge in such a remote land? Ketal walks over to the barrier and touches it, wondering whether it can be broken. Hayes says that it cannot. This place is already her territory. Unless the demon is defeated, there is no way to leave the barrier. Ketal presses against it, and it immediately begins to fracture. He smiles slightly and pats the fracture back into place so he is not discovered. Perhaps he will watch a little longer. Hayes wonders what he's doing, but Ketal assures her that it's nothing. Aquas burns with rage at the demon that is playing tricks. A satyr descends toward her and asks whether the mystery was fun. Did it stir her curiosity and make her investigate? Aquas knows now why there were traces of life left behind in a vanished village. That was nothing more than a demon's trick designed to toy with people. A truly vile act befitting something like her. Ketal watches this with undisguised curiosity and amusement. Summoning a named demon requires tremendous sacrifice. The lives of one small village would not be enough, and for it to claim a territory without anyone noticing should be impossible. How could it have descended into the world? A satyr refuses to answer, but Aquas no longer cares to ask. Her eyes light up in righteous fury as this evil filth dares to defile this land. A satyr lets out a cackling laugh, as this is not defilement, and in a place like this, her god cannot do a single thing to save her. She should listen well, as the world is now fracturing and no longer belongs to them alone. Long ago, the gods and humans clashed against evil. The gods and humans were victorious, and the defeated evil was banished from this realm. From the foul hells, she has awaited this day with longing. She is a satyr, the demon of gravity. She shall wash away the disgrace of the past and stain the world in evil. Aquas tells her that she is just a vile creature. This world belongs only to the gods and humanity, so she should return to her rightful place. She raises her hand, and a spark becomes a whole-ass display of light as she is immediately clad in combat armor. Ketal is amazed that a satyr does not attack Aquas while she transforms. This is like those Power Rangers shows all over again. Now Aquas stands at her full might, covered head to toe in glorious armor, and armed with her weapon. A satyr is delighted by the sight. They should go ahead and enjoy themselves now, as she has always wanted to beat a god's dog to death. Aquas rushes in, and a satyr clashes with her, causing a flurry of power to explode throughout the entire sealed village. They push each other, and a satyr twirls her hammer in her hands, saying that even a battle should have some dignity. Does a hound like her even know that? Fire burns brighter in Aquas' eyes as she asks whether a satyr has finished barking up the wrong tree. Aquas rushes in with fervent might, but before she can track a satyr's movement, the demon disappears and reappears behind her. She doesn't even need to do something extremely vicious. She simply taps Aquas' shield with her fingers, and it causes a surge of incredible weight crashes down on Aquas. She forces it back with her might, and begins reciting chapter and verse, proclaiming that the brilliant light shall not be trespassed by anyone. The holy spell blasts a satyr away. Aquas glows with even more power. A satyr is surprised that she is able to recite the holy scriptures at her age. She is full of surprises, isn't she? Aquas continues, citing chapter 5, verse 59, the magnificent aura incinerates all that is wicked. With this new boost of holy fire, she rushes at a satyr, swinging her mace wide. A satyr dodges and crashes her own weapon against Aquas's, pushing her away. Despite fighting someone of the holy order, she seems to be enjoying this. They clash once again, releasing another surge of power, sending debris and wind flying towards the others. However, Ketal just finds it magnificent. Hayes approaches Ketal and asks whether he can help Lady Aquas. Ketal certainly can, but he wonders why he should. Ketal wonders why he would interfere and ruin such a fight. Of course, he too has a desire to fight a demon, but for now, he would rather observe this battle. Hayes is completely shocked, as that's not what she meant at all, but she decides to let it go for now. The holy and unholy powers continue clashing before pushing each other away once again. A satyr is not worried. She has the upper hand in terms of raw power, but as expected of a god's hunting dog, she really is powerful as well. The only thing holding a satyr back is the unfavorable matchup. Demonic beings cannot stand against the divine. At this rate, the battle will drag on. If that is the case, she must use a method that will secure victory. Instead of charging in at Aquas once again, a satyr pivots and rushes in towards the adventurers, aiming to drag Aquas into a precarious position. Aquas moves to defend the other adventurers, who fall on their asses before the uncontrollable might. Aquas strains to drive a satyr away, and calls her a filthy creature for it. A satyr laughs as she charges in again. Was she actually expecting a demon to fight fair and square? With an extremely annoyed expression, Aquas begins to recite the first chapter and the first verse. With this verse, A brilliantly shining golden domain is born, shielding the others from the overwhelming pressure of Asadiar's domain. Aquas tells everyone to enter the barrier to remain safe, and they shakily thank her. Asadiar laughs. Is it really all right to use sacred scripture in such a way? The angered Aquas doesn't even answer and rushes in. Asadiar enjoys seeing this side of Aquas, and they charge at each other. Aquas unleashes an overhead strike with her mace, but Asadiar uses the blow to carry her momentum upward. She notes that death is just death. Nobody will recognize her pathetic noble sacrifice in the end, or even remember her face. Aquas twists her entire body and strikes from the side, and Asadiar continues to dodge, telling her that if this keeps going on, she will be defeated and tarnish her god's honor. If Aquas defeats Asadiar and returns, would her prestige and influence not grow? It is simple. Aquas only needs to dismiss the holy ground protecting the others. Wouldn't that be better for both of them? Aquas wonders if she's really trying to play tricks on a god-ordained inquisitor, but Asadiar just laughs. Perhaps she's really planning to die here. Aquas refuses to listen to her any further, so Asadiar understands. If that is Aquas' choice, she will die a martyr. She unleashes a devastating gravitational strike at Aquas, one she is barely able to block with her shield. This time, Asadiar is not playing. She's moving in for the kill. She disappears and reappears right in front of Aquas, whose pupils shrink to pinpricks as the strike hits her head on. Aquas blocks the strike but is thrown far away. Asadiar is not done either, as she rushes in with a barrage of tendril-like strikes. Aquas tries to recite a verse from another chapter, but before she can finish, Asadiar clamps her palm over Aquas' mouth, telling her to stop, as she's had enough scripture for today. She punts Aquas into the ground and stands above her, ready to finish her off. Before she unleashes her killing blow, however, Aquas raises her shield in a last-ditch effort to protect herself, pushing against the overwhelming gravitational force. Even her best effort is not enough, as the shield itself breaks. This leaves her wide open, and Asadiar, with a snap of her fingers, pins Aquas down. As a result, the protective domain around the others also falters, and the adventurers think that they are going to die at this rate. Asadiar laughs, saying that she will now have them all for dessert. First comes the main course. She has always wondered what the noble hound of a god tastes like. Before she can sink her sharp teeth into Aquas' nape, Ketal appears and puts a hand on her shoulder, telling her to stop, as that's far enough. Naturally, Asadiar is more than a little confused, her satisfied expression faltering, as she did not sense his presence at all. Ketal just grips her a little tighter and hurls her pretty damn hard into the ground. Aquas is left stunned. She had forgotten that this man was the transcendent powerhouse who defeated a swordmaster. Even so, they are up against a named demon. Naturally, Asadiar is extremely annoyed at being thrown by an insolent barbarian like that. How dare he interrupt her meal? Ketal calmly states that Aquas is his friend, so he cannot let her die. Asadiar growls, as she really wanted to keep him as a toy, but she will not show him that mercy anymore, that's for sure. Ketal notes that he had no intention of becoming her toy. Pass the controller, bro. Asadiar smiles and forms her hammer once again, noting that he will have to die if that's the case. Aquas gets up and tells Ketal to step back. He cannot defeat this demon. Ketal tells her that he is quite strong, but she tells him that this isn't a matter of who is stronger. Only divine power can banish a demon from this realm. No other power can do it. That has been the law since good and evil first came into existence. Furthermore, this is her territory. They cannot even hope for a miracle. Ketal asks whether she is saying that only a god can stand against a demon. Even if that's true, it doesn't look like she is in any condition to fight now. Aquas tells him to pay her no mind. As a servant of her god, she must be the one to do it. Ketal can see that. Even through the haze clouding her mind, she is still trying to recite scripture. This is the will of one who serves a god, huh? He pats her on the head, as that's rather impressive, and walks in front of her, telling her to leave this to him. He's been wanting to fight a demon for a while now after all. Asadiar cannot believe that he fails to understand. He can never hope to defeat her. Ketal, however, wants to test that theory. Asadiar licks her lips, and with that same surge of power that took Aquas down, she rushes in, aiming to take Ketal by surprise. Aquas' eyes widen as she expects the worst. But just as Asadiar is about to strike, Ketal punches the ever-living shit out of her, completely decapitating her on the spot. Aquas naturally can't believe what she's seeing. Did he smash her head with just his fist? Is something like that even possible? Asadiar's headless body moves to a safer distance, and she regenerates fully. Ketal is surprised. Even when her head shatters, she regenerates. She's different from the skeletons. Asadiar wonders what the hell he is. Now more focused than angry, Asadiar demands to know Ketal's true nature, but he answers that he is nothing more than a simple barbarian. Asadiar bites her lower lip as this feels too strange. There is no trace of mystery. He wields neither aura nor magic, so she will have to check it herself. She summons another gravitational portal behind him and rushes in with a lot more fervor, this time putting her entire body into an overhead strike. Ketal is not really surprised, just a little awkward, as it feels a little weird to strike something in human form. It can't be helped. He extends his fist forward, smashing it through a CDR, who simply does not understand what is going on. Ketal pulls his fist back, sending her flying, but this time, a CDR regenerates much faster, although it seems to take a toll, as dark blood spews from her mouth. She falls to her knees, thinking that something like this is impossible. It was nothing but a mere punch. It wasn't strengthened by aura or magic. It was a simple punch. Ketal is also glad that she regenerated immediately this time. He looks at Asediar and wonders what principle is behind it. Asediar tries to summon her weapon again, but Ketal rushes in before she can. He unleashes another devastating blow to her face, punting her into the ground, completely eradicating her skull. Ketal looks at her body closely and can see that it's not really regenerating, but reorganizing as it's swept up by gravitational tendrils. That energy allows another body to appear somewhere else nearby. Asediar finds it utterly ridiculous that Ketal can fight her with nothing but brute strength. Worse, he may not even be using his full power against her. She calls out to Ketal. He points at himself, and Asediar tells him to listen well. She is Asediar, the demon of gravity. Does he really think he can continue facing her with nothing but raw strength? Ketal stays silent for a moment and notes that it doesn't seem all that impressive to him in the first place. At that moment, Asediar's pride shatters into a million pieces, and she rushes in with so much rage and power that it sends the earth beneath her flying. She swings the hammer with much more force this time, hurling it towards Ketal, whose hair merely flutters. He catches the hammer in one hand, noting that it's not bad, as it is quite heavy. With the same hand, he tightens his grip and completely shatters it before unleashing another decapitating punch into her, sending her flying. Asediar regenerates again but thinks that this is impossible. She's the demon of gravity. At full power, she can imbue a hammer with the weight of a fortress, and yet he blocked it bare-handed and even shattered it. A so-called simple barbarian with no grasp of mystery should never be capable of this. It is impossible. She unleashes the full brunt of her power right into Ketal, telling him to just die already. However, he simply clenches his fist and punches her gravitational power away, sending it hurtling back toward her. The reflected force combines with his punch and creates a bomb-like explosion. Aqua shields herself from the blast, wondering what she's even looking at. Centuries ago, Asediar was a mighty demon who single-handedly brought down a kingdom, and yet that same demon is now being beaten to death by nothing but punches. Ketal stands above her, seeing that she's still regenerating, so she's not really dying. His ordinary physical force alone is not enough to kill a demon, it seems. Asediar has now realized this man is powerful beyond any comprehension. She asks what exactly he is, but Ketal has already told her he is just a simple barbarian. Asetiar finds this laughable now. Still, she has one more test she would like to perform. Suddenly, she disappears from beneath Ketal's foot and ends up above them, unleashing something a lot more devastating. She surges with incredible power, blasting it outward as she reveals her true form, as numerous jagged spears appear beside her. She tells Ketal that she will pierce right through him with every ounce of power that she possesses. Ketal is not afraid at all. He is glad to see demonic power used so fully for the first time. Aquas has realized that this is dangerous. Ketal cannot defeat Asediar with sheer physical force, but Aquas can support him with divine power. Asediar commands the thorns to strike and slay, and the legion of thorns immediately hurls itself towards Ketal, who does not move at all. He simply bats them away with his axe, completely shattering them with each strike. Asediar is shocked yet again in this fight, and Ketal rushes in, aiming to strike her down once again. Just in time, Aquas completes her verse, imbuing his axe with holy power. Naturally, Ketal is amazed to wield the power of a god like this. Aquas tells him that he needs to strike her down now, while he still can. Ketal would have preferred to observe a little longer, but it can't be helped. Still, it has been an enjoyable fight. He drives the divinely imbued axe into Asediar's chest, dealing a mortal wound as she realizes she has lost. The divine power overwhelms her, and she falls to the ground, slowly beginning to disintegrate. Ketal lands next to her with a crash, noting that this was pretty entertaining. Asediar laughs and says that being dragged back to hell like this is quite disappointing, but it was not all in vain. She has confirmed that someone like him exists in the world above, a being of incredible power. She asks what his name is, and Ketal, believing it to be an innocent question, simply tells her. Aquas screams for Ketal not to reveal his name, confusing him, but Asediar begins to laugh. She sends a command down to hell, telling all who dwell in hell to remember the name of the barbarian Ketal. They should engrave his name in their memories and claim the being known as Ketal. A million demonic eyes appear, carrying power far greater than Asediar herself can wield, and it slowly begins to seep towards Ketal. Asediar laughs, as from this moment on, he belongs to the demons. The legions and legions of eyes rush in towards Ketal, but he simply closes his eyes, and within Ketal's mental world, they cannot even hope to penetrate what he truly is. The eyes try to reach him, but the legions immediately retreat, leaving Ketal confused as to what exactly was supposed to happen. Asediar wonders how this is possible, as that darkness should have torn through him, and Ketal, seeing that Asediar is still present, simply swats her away, completely disintegrating her. Aquas and Haze are left entirely stunned, but Ketal just stretches, as Asediar's barrier breaks, and sunlight pours through, and smiles broadly, thinking that the request is now finished. Thank you for watching. See you next time.